welcome all our special guests here tonight. We're going to call this board meeting to order. Time is 6:30 on May 10th, 2022. And just a short announcement for the people that are out in the lobby. I've been told it's getting kind of full, so if you could kind of disperse a little bit, and we'll make sure, and there's some TVs out there where you can observe also, and we'll make sure we give you plenty of time when your student's name is called to come on in to the building here, or this off room here, sorry. So we'll go ahead and go to agenda item number 1, which is adoption of the agenda as submitted.
I move that we adopt the agenda as submitted with the following change, moving agenda item 6 to immediately following agenda item 3.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Second by Dawn, by Laurel. Any public comment? Seeing none. Any online public comment?
No, Mr. Varner, thank you.
I'll go ahead and call for a vote then. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move into the flag salute, which will be led by Lupe Ramirez. Please join us. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 3 is the superintendent's report. Mr. Stokes.
Thank you, President Varner. Trustees and community members, students, we're really happy to have you with us here this evening. I'd like to begin by just giving a little information. If you have a student who will be of kindergarten age next year, please know that students must be 5 years of age on or before the first day of school, which next year will be on August the 15th. This is a change from prior years, and so if you have any questions, we invite you to contact your principal or the front office staff at your zone school. Next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Patrick Mobley, who is the speech teacher and debate coach at Carson High School, and he has with him some students who have qualified for the national event, and I'd like to introduce Mr. Mobley and invite him and his students to join us.
Should it light? Oh, now it lights up green. Very good. All right. Good evening, everyone. As it's been a little while since we've been able to do this in person, but I am Patrick Molly. I'm the head coach of the Carson High Speech and Debate team, and I've got my assistant coach somewhere. Oh, with the children, Nikki Klinger Mobley, my wife and partner in crime. And this year, I'd like to announce that we have a record number 7 qualifiers to travel to Louisville, Kentucky, June 11th to 18th to represent Carson City and Nevada at the national tournament, which will host 6,000 students, and we'll see how they can do. So I'm going to stand aside and let them do what they do best and introduce themselves and the events that they speak in.
Hi, my name is Penelope Truel. I nationally qualified for the Big Questions debate tournament. At the district level tournament for the Big Questions level debate. And my topic being the resolution, on balance, societies benefit from religious belief and practice. I qualified 3rd, and I will now be going to Louisville, Kentucky with all of my fabulous classmates, and we will be competing.
Hi there, I'm Jessica Knutson. I've done speech and debate for the past 4 years, and this year I'm one of the team captains for speech and debate. I qualified in World Schools Debate, which is a 5-person British parliamentary style debate. And 3 of the Carson kids make up the 5-person team, which is absolutely amazing.
Good evening, I'm Ryan Soulier. I am also one of the team captains of the speech and debate team. I am also participating in the World Schools Debate with my other 2 teammates, Jessica, and the other one that couldn't make it tonight, David. And as my partner said, this is a 5-person debate event, and we will be participating with our other teammates at nationals. I have also been on the team since freshman year.
Hello, I'm Abby Cook. I am a third-year debater. I am a double qualifier for nationals as I placed first in Lincoln Douglas debate and second in dramatic interpretation, which I am choosing to take my bulimia piece on. Thank you.
I'm Olivia Van Reese, and I'm a freshman at Carson High School, and I made it to nationals with my program oral interpretation speech about homophobia.
Hi, my name is Viviana Castro. I'm a sophomore at Carson High School, and I qualified for nationals in congressional debate, which very closely mirrors what it is you guys do here today.
All right, so a lot of our fundraising things have occurred already. We had our extravaganza last weekend. We had a BQ tournament. We brought in some local people that the National League then paid us some money. We still have a GoFundMe at Carson High Nationals 2022, which can still take money forever. And then Wednesday, the 25th, Bullies is doing a fundraiser for us. We're a few days, Buffalo Wild Wings, sorry. Buffalo Wild Wings is doing a fundraiser where if you let them know you were coming for part of us, 10% of your ticket will go towards the team's fundraising purposes. Wednesday, the 25th of this month. And then pretty much any time they're open. Because they are like, oh, teachers can come going on their lunch break. I didn't have the heart to tell them we don't have time to commute there. But after we get off. Yeah. So with that, are there any other questions for regards to nationals or for my kids and their events?
No, I would just like to congratulate you guys and thank you for representing Carson High School. This is a terrific event for you guys, and we're looking forward to great things. And just thank you so much for doing it. And I'll open it to the board for other comments, if there's any.
I'll just again congratulate everybody. I think Carson is just full of amazing students, really. And you're another example of that. I mean, we've seen students come here from different sports teams, from academic teams, from a variety of different, if you will, extracurricular activities. And it's always impressive what all of you are involved in and how much you accomplish. So honestly, congratulations. This is exciting.
How many of you are seniors? Just raise your hand. So that's amazing that you guys are going to do this after you graduate. So kudos to you for putting in the effort.
Any other comments by the board? What I'd like to do is have everyone give these young women and men a great big hand. Yeah, good luck and thank you guys.
Mr. President, members of the board, that concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 6, presentation of the 2021-2022 Distinguished Student Awards for all CCSD schools, including Carson Montessori Charter School. And this will be Mr. Stokes, and it's for discussion only. Thank you.
And Mr. President, if you would join me as well, thank you.
And if there's any parents that want to get the front of them, feel free to come up behind us to get your pictures.
Mr. President and members of the board, it's my privilege to participate in this exciting event. It has been nearly 3 years since we have last had our Distinguished Students Awards, and we have truly missed the energy that families and parents bring to our meetings, and I'd just like to say thank you for being here. And we realize that COVID played a big role in us not being able to have our distinguished students being represented here. And even the format of this room has changed, which has greatly reduced the ability that we have to put more people in here. Even so, we will go slowly enough through this process so that everyone can be duly recognized. And as we kind of get ready, I want to give you just a little bit of direction on how we're going to move forward. So we're going to start by recognizing our elementary students first, and we are going to go in alphabetical order with Bordewick Bray being our first one. So if you can kind of get ready, we're going to have you come up, get your award, stand for photographs, so parents, there'll be lots of opportunities for that. And then we'll ask you to return to your seat. And when we've gone through all of our distinguished students, we'll have all of the students come forward in front of the dais here. And we would love to have a photograph of all of our distinguished students with their medals. So please don't leave after you've gotten your medals. And that way we'll ask the board members to scrunch together too so we can get a nice photograph for the newspaper. It'd be a wonderful way to cap this event off. Every year, thousands of students attend schools in Carson City School District. Each student has specific talents, qualities, and experiences that help to shape their character. Tonight, we're honoring 32 of our students who were selected by their principal as having specific qualities, skills, and characteristics that distinguishes them at their school. The word distinguished in the English language implies that there's something special in a person that can be recognized or identified by unique features or characteristics. The word also suggests that subtle or very small differences that are good or honorable also sets one person apart from others. This definition is being used tonight to honor students from our school district who have set themselves apart from their classmates by their everyday actions and contributions to their schools. These students are those who are good scholars, have good attendance, are honest and trustworthy, have courage to make good decisions, are good teammates, have patience, are helpful, obey the rules and are on time, are nice. They protect others, and simply put, they help make their schools a better place. The students being recognized tonight have demonstrated that they have these types of qualities. Our students who are being honored tonight should understand that business owners and citizens of our community value people with these kinds of characteristics. In fact, individuals who have these qualities make great employees. They become managers and supervisors. They hold positions of responsibility and importance. They're sought to participate in civic activities, provide service, and support and protect those who need help. On behalf of the trustees of the Carson City School Districts and the principals at our local schools, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our distinguished students for the 2021-2022 school year. I would like to also thank Mr. Varner, our president of the school board, for helping me in this process, and he will be handing out our medals. So again, as stated earlier, if I could have the students from Bordewick Bray be ready to come forward as I call their name. Ahmad Bashir. Ahmad, if you'd come forward, please. Congratulations. Stand where your mom can get a photo. Well done.
Okay.
And these are heavy-duty medals, aren't they? They're not just Cracker Jack things, right? Okay. Next, we'd like to have Aaron Bedoy Funes come forward, please. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do you have anybody taking your photo here?
No.
Turn and smile. Here's your principal right behind you. Look that way. Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Ashton Flakus to come forward. All of these students are from Bordewick Bray. Are you Ashton? Are you Ashton? Oh, you're Aaron. Are you Ashton? No, I'm not. Oh, you're, wait a second. Did we miss somebody? Oh,
Yeah, it got swapped.
okay, as long as everybody gets a medal.
Yeah.
So are you Ashton?
Yes, I'm Ashton.
Okay. So Ashton was first. He was just an overachiever. And so we have also had Ahmad. Is that correct? Oh, you're Ahmad. Okay. All right, we're going to get this down before we're all done. And you are Aaron. Congratulations. Okay. I think we got them all named. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move next to our students from Empire Elementary. So we'll give you just a moment to kind of get prepared, and if you would come up as I call your name, please, we will try not to miss this again. Thank you, Mrs. Squires. So, if we could have Amy Ramirez Yerzua come forward, please. Come right on up. Congratulations. Next, I'd like to invite Alicia Colazo Perez to come forward. And our next student to be recognized is Maggie Jackson. Congratulations to our students from Empire. Thank you, ladies. You can take your seats now. The next school to have students recognized will be from Fremont Elementary School. And I would like to first introduce Uraldi Anaya Miguel, 5th grader. Congratulations. Our next student is Isabella Guerrero Hurtado. And our next student is Alan Riley. Congratulations to our distinguished students from Fremont. Our next students to be honored will be from Fritsch Elementary School. We will begin by recognizing Sophia Lamas. Next, we have Aiden Martin. And our third student from Fritsch, Carmen Mills. Thank you, Fritz Elementary students. Congratulations. Next, we'll recognize our students from Mark Twain Elementary. Beginning with Abram Aguera Rodriguez. Our next student is Mishala DeLeo. Next, I would like to introduce Araceli Elazara Rereras. Sorry if I got that wrong. There we go. Congratulations to our students from Mark Twain. Next, we'll recognize our distinguished students from Seeliger Elementary. We'd like to begin with Isaac Meshberger. Congratulations, Isaac. You look great too. Our next student is Brianna Mora. And our next student is Jonathan Witt. Good. Well done. We could have all three of you guys turn around and that'll be a good photograph. Nice. Congratulations. We're also proud to recognize students from Carson Montessori School. And if those students are here, which we are counting on, I'd like to invite Hank Brown to come forward. And I'd also like to introduce Sawyer Ross. Thank you for being here. So next, we'd like to put our middle school students and staff on alert. We'll be starting with Carson Middle School, and then we'll go to Eagle Valley Middle School. I'd like to begin with Amelia Papez from Carson Middle School. Next, we have 7th grader Grace Turner. And 8th grader Yahir Zambrano Ibarra. Congratulations to our students from Carson Middle School. From Eagle Valley Middle School, we have Eduardo Aguilar. We'd also like to recognize Kyle Allen. And next we have Melissa Villavicencio. Thanks for your patience. Congratulations. Congratulations to our Eagle Valley students. Thanks, you guys. Oh, one more, sorry. Just flip around.
Rotate.
Next, from Carson High School, we have ninth grader Christopher Roski. Well done, young man, well done. That's exciting. Next, we have 10th grader Yulissa Rodriguez Alonso. From the 11th grade at Carson High School, we have Hong Nguyen. Congratulations. Thank you. And our senior from Carson High School is Ethne Myler. Thank you. So according to the box, we're nearly out of medals. We have two students from Pioneer Academy, ninth grader Kylie Kraus Mays. And in the 12th grade, Mr. James Mason. James, congratulations. What we would like to do next is to invite all of our medal winners back into the room, and we'll ask the older students, or at least the taller students, to be along the back row, and then kind of organize yourselves in such a way that we can get a nice photograph of all of the students and our trustees. Thank you, Richard. Students, let's slide down this way a little bit. We're going to slide this way. There we go, away from the podium. That way everybody can see you. Let's come down this way a little. Okay, we need that family reunion person that's in charge of the photos to help us organize here. We need to squeeze you a little bit in. There, atta girl, good job.
TVs and say cheese. Here, Christopher, come here. Come here. Come here. Go right. There you go. And say your favorite word. Look at that gentleman right there in the brown jacket. Right here. 3, 2, 1, 3.
Thank you, parents and students. Keep up the great work. It was really our delight to have you with us this evening, and good luck with the end of your school year. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and take a short recess while the room clears out. Just thank everybody coming and congratulations to all the distinguished students. Thank you. board meeting back to order. Time is 7:08, still on May 10th, 2022. We'll move on to agenda item number 4, which is board reports and board member comments. This is for information only. Do we have anybody here from Carson High School? Seeing no one, do we have anyone here from Pioneer High School? Seeing no one, we'll go ahead and move on to Nevada Association of School Boards update. Do we have any? No update. We'll go ahead and move on to the board reports. We'll start with Mr. Cassiopo.
I have one from Pioneer. Well, a couple of things. Most of the kids left already, but I just wanted to put my usual pitch in for paying attention to the scholarships at the high school. I think they still call it the Scoop. If you're interested, you don't have to be a senior, start paying attention to scholarships. There's a lot of financial opportunity for students if they want to attend college, trade schools, or other opportunities. And I would just encourage folks to pay attention to who's willing to help them out in their pursuits. Regarding Pioneer, it's a little lengthy, so I just wanted to forewarn you. During the 2017-18 school year, the Pioneer leadership team began working on the idea of discovery blocks. Now, 5 years later, the ideas come to fruition. In practice, a discovery block is a block of time that's been identified within the current school schedule for an extended learning experience. Students work in groups to complete discovery or STEAM learning activities. The goal is to combine skills, knowledge, and ultimately standards from multiple disciplines so that students experience learning from a more holistic perspective. For their first iteration, Pioneer Academy has partnered with Western Nevada College physics professor and director of the Jack C. Davis Observatory to create a learning experience for students where they'll learn to use a computer program to collect data on double stars in order to generate a hypothesis on whether or not their set of double stars are true binary stars or simply optical double stars. In order for this task to have meaning for students and understand the astronomical significance of true binary stars, a series of background knowledge learning experiences were required. These discovery experiences range from measurement techniques and understanding light years to using constellations for location and understanding the history and purpose behind those constellations. And the activities have started. They took place they started in 3 consecutive Fridays. The first was May 6th, which involved background knowledge. May 13th, which will be double star activity at Western Nevada College. And then May 20th, which will be synthesis and presentation creation. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Stacy?
Just wanted to say that I enjoyed the training that we did have at NASB. We had some really good discussions, and it was good to see trustees from the other counties. Also like to thank OCEA with their banquet and CESA with their banquet. It's always nice to be able to celebrate our great teachers and our great support staff, so I appreciated that invite.
Thank you, Don.
I have a few things from Dr. Conley at Eagle Valley Middle School. 5th graders from Fremont, Sealiger, Empire, and even a few from Borderwick received Eagle Valley school tours. We are excited to have them as Eagles beginning next year. There will be an ice cream social parent-student night for all future 6th graders on May 25th, 5 o'clock to 6:30 p.m. The PTO provided great snacks for Teacher Appreciation Week. We love our PTO. And then lastly, the office managers, secretaries, and administrative assistants were celebrated with a brunch and gifts. We couldn't be successful without them.
Thank you. Lupe?
From Mr. Chambers from Carson High School. They're currently taking the AP testing, and they'll be wrapping it up this week. The students and staff have been working diligently to represent the school. The Fine Arts Department is putting on a senior showcase on Senator Square on May 10th from 6 to 8 p.m. NJROTC has been named Distinguished Unit for their region. There's only one unit chosen from each region, so this is a big deal. They were also recognized for academic excellence. They are now in a pool to be recognized nationally, and they will find out more toward the end of the month. The spring athletes in softball, baseball, swim, track, and golf are all competing at regionals, and graduation is right around the corner. I also have a report from Silger. So from Mississauga, they are completing the makeup testing for SBAC, and then next week they are having a combined event for families for Gate Showcase, a family night at the book fair and STEM night. She's looking forward to seeing all the families, and the event is going to be on May 19 from 5:30 to 7 p.m. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Laurel?
For Fremont Elementary School, on May 18th from 4:30 to 6, they are having dinner and a talent show. And they, board members, you'll see your invitation. They would like to invite the board members to attend too. Families, they'd like you to RSVP and have your table reserved by May 13th. And also, they're going to have the families walking the halls to see the learning that's going on that night as well. But dinner and the talent show sound like it should be a good evening. Also, I just would like to remind everyone that for the high school, this week is regionals for track and swimming and other sporting events that are going on. So if you don't have plans on the weekend and want to go up to Reed High School, the track is going Friday and Saturday, and the swim meet is here at the Carson Aquatic Facility. And then one more information is there is Sammy Schofield, the next year's student body president at Carson High School, is helping to organize a blood drive at the church located south of the high school on June 2nd from 11 to 4. And that is going to be organized as part of the Kindness for Chris Coulomb campaign that the kids have been doing. He's a freshman at the high school that has cancer. And so if you would like to donate blood, if you're unable to do so, on that day, you can contact Vitalent and do a date that works for you to donate it. Just go to vitalent.org, and then the blood drive code for it is Carson Interfaith. So you can find the location if you want to do it on that date, but any other time, you can also let them know that that's what you're donating blood for. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. I really don't have a report tonight, but what I would like to say is to give kind of a shout out, I guess, to Miss Valley at Carson Middle School. I was able to attend their musical theater presentation last week, and I got to tell you, the kids did an outstanding job. It was very entertaining. I can't say enough about it. They were really, really good. And then parents may check Parent Square also for upcoming details about the promotion ceremony for the Carson Middle School. And just a shout out also to the Light of Education Award winners. I'm not going to name them all, but I wanted to say congratulations to all of them, teachers again, and staff members. So thank you. And that's all I have for report. So we're going to go ahead and move on to public comment. And yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Anybody from the association with a report tonight? All right, thank you. We'll move on to public comment. Comments will be accepted in person or through virtual participation via email or online. Comments may be made by members of the public on any matter within the authority of this board. Please note that public comment will be taken on items marked for possible action before action is taken on such items, and members of the public are encouraged to comment on such items at the time they are being considered. Although members of the board may respond to questions and discuss issues raised during public comment, no action may be taken on such a matter until the matter is placed on an agenda for action at a meeting. In making public comment, speakers are asked to come to the table or podium, sign in, speak into the microphone, and identify themselves for the record. Speakers are instructed to limit their comments to no more than 3 minutes, regardless of whether the comments are made in person or through virtual participation, and to simply not repeat comments made by others. Now, I guess what I would ask is if people are here about agenda item number 9, if you'd wait until we call that agenda item, that'd be great. And now I will call for any public comment, and I have some signed in here. Rocky Boyce Sr., please come forward and state your name for the record.
That's where we're going here. Name is Rocky Boyce Sr. I'm a co-director of the American Indian Movement, Northern Nevada. We have issues that have been going on in this school for a long time, but specifically this last couple of years with different things with some of the teachers and the students. I'm sure you're all aware of the case that happened back in March where one of the autistic students was threatened by their teacher. And we were here a couple of years ago or a year and a half ago about another incident that happened down at Eagle Valley School, and where there's some other incidents that are going on down there right now, where one of the staff is pulling the young Native boy's hair, wanting to know what this is all about and this and that. And these kids have the right to their protection, and they're not getting it. And we, as the American Indian Movement, like I said, we met with Mr. Stokes before. We met with Dr. Conley, Brian Wallace. We met with all these different ones. Brian Wallace was one of the ones that had accusations against him in the past, and now is getting ready to move up to the president of the union. And we're here to say that we oppose that too. But our biggest concern, like I say, is what actions are happening with these teachers or these employees that are doing these things with these children. When it came to Brian Wallace, they came back, a lot of the ones say that he was cleared of all the charges, but that isn't true. It's they felt that, enough had been done, in punishment for whatever he happened to do or whatever it was. But we're not satisfied with the actions that have been taken by the school board or anybody else on these issues that have been going on. So I'm hoping maybe with the new superintendent of the school board and stuff, maybe we could have some different things that are going on, because we haven't had it in the past. And these issues, like you say, they've been going on since I was in school here. From the 4th grade till I was run out of school in the 11th grade, passed every year without one passing grade. Teachers that used to take us into the rooms to let us fight, so them and other teachers would get enjoyment out of it. These kind of things were going on when I was a kid. They're still going on
Thank you,
today.
Mr. Boyce. Your
And
30 minutes is up, but thank you.
We're here.
I appreciate you coming. Sherry, is it Vaughn or? Cherie Vaughn.
Is this on? Awesome. My name is Cherie Vaughn. I live here in Carson City. My oldest daughter was born at the old hospital. My mother and I and my daughter went to the same gynecologist. I have a great granddaughter that's going to be born before the end of the month is over with, supposedly. Everything works out all right. I'm really concerned about our education system right now as a great grandmother because of what I see going on in our schools. I'm totally and absolutely 100% opposed to the CRT or anything else like that. I'm totally 100% opposed to anybody teaching my children gender studies. And the reason why is because I had my granddaughter came home one day informing us she was non-binary and her name was now Guy. And we had no idea that this was going on in the school system. And I'm not happy about it at all, 100%. I'm here to voice my opinion about it. I don't know how it's happening. I want it to stop. And I am here to tell you right now that this is my first time that you've seen me, but you're going to see me a whole lot more before we're done, because I have a great-granddaughter being born, and I don't want to see her end up like the other granddaughter that I have that came home non-binary and with a name change all of a sudden. Thank you very much. Make sure that whatever you do, you stop this, because I'm telling you right now, the parents, the grandparents, the great-grandparents, the mothers, and the fathers are not happy with this. And I'm here to tell you, I'm just one voice, but I'm one voice of many. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. State your name for the record, please.
My name is Marianne Holbrook, and I'm with the Washoe Tribe, also a named supporter. And just to follow Rocky Boyce, I'd like to talk a little bit about accountability and responsibility and what it looks like. When we send our kids to school, and I'm sorry. Oh, I'll just use my inside voice then.
Well, try to speak in the microphone so it can get on record, please.
Oh, okay. So what does it look like to have accountability and responsibility? Because that's what we're here for. Now, we stood and we waited for, and I'm really happy that we stood here and that we were honored to honor some of those children, but we're also asking to honor our children. And what does that look like? What does team building look like? So teaching is a privilege. It's a privilege to be able to share your knowledge with other children. And if that knowledge is not being respected, then something has to happen. And what does that look like? What does an apology look like? Sometimes it means acknowledgement that there was a problem. I acknowledge that I hurt you. What can I do to make it better? Now, all I see is people looking down at their papers, and that's not an acknowledgement. That's a dismissal. Please acknowledge the hurt and harm that was caused. Please acknowledge what's going on in your rooms. What does it look like to do better? We do better when we know better. I'm asking for accountability and responsibility. Acknowledge that there was a problem. How can we fix it? What can we do better? Our children are only going to be as strong as the parents that show up for them. And when our children come home and they say we have a problem, we're here because they had a problem and we're their voice and we're here to protect them. What does that look like? I showed you respect. Please be respectful to me. Please be respectful to us. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to probably mispronounce this name, but Ray, is it Valley or Vasquez? I'm sorry, I can't make it out. So if you'd state your name for the record, I'd appreciate it.
Tuisa Kitwutsiaya, I acknowledge you in my native language. Tell Chami hui ito blok blok. Mr. Stokes, I'm sad I'm back here. We've done this before. We're here again. Ray Bakasego Valdez, Yaki Yomi, Director of the American Indian Movement, Northern Nevada. Sit on the Executive Grand Council for the American Movement out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Mr. Stokes, we went through this last year. Brian Wallace, we're asking for Brian Wallace's resignation. We want him fired. He should not be the vice president of the teachers union. And it's being opposed now, and we're going to take it as far as we have to. The systemic racism in your schools needs to stop. You had it last year. We came before you. The OCR ruled that Wallace was negligent and that y'all did enough, but you didn't do enough because it's happening still. And Lee Conley needs to go too. We want Lee Conley fired. He needs to go because he's allowing it in his school. We came in kind and compassionate. We're still kind and compassionate, but you've pushed us to the limit. You put us in a corner. Stacy Talum needs to be fired. Ralph Myron needs to be fired. Until you people here take accountability and hold a teacher accountable, it's going to continue. The systemic racism and the microaggressions will continue in your school district. And we're not going away. AIM Northern Nevada's here. We're going to be here. You have a lawsuit coming. You have one coming. If you don't know, you know now. not from us, from a parent. So we're asking you to do the right thing, protect our children. I'm a school teacher in the Washington County School District 25 years. I'm privileged, like my sister said, to teach, to take care of all children, to protect all children, native, non-native, to have compassion to their feelings. We, as a community, raise our children. You people here are helping us raise our children. You need to fire a teacher and let them know that they're accountable. It's going to continue until you really step up. And we're going to go back to the OCR, and we're going to go through the process. We're educated Indians. So we're going to come forward, and we're going to help our families. We don't come here as bullies, as thugs. Families reach out to us because others won't step forward. I have 2 daughters in high school, one graduating out of McQueen this year. Beautiful, native, proud. It's ugly. We're asking you to do the right thing. Step up.
Thank
Step
you.
up.
Thank you.
Leo some chokyo tessia.
You're-
Leo
th-
some chokyo tessia.
All right,
I said in
thank
my
you.
language, blessings to you.
Thank you. Marianne Humphreys? You're doing 9, okay. What about Kitty Colbert?
Hi, my name is Kitty Colbert. I also am here with AIM Northern Nevada. I'm the treasurer for our chapter. I have several Native children in the school district here, one in IEP. But I can tell you back in 2016, I was run over under the Reno Arch during a protesting Columbus Day. My granddaughter was in Eagle Valley Middle School at the time, and she wouldn't tell me the teacher's name, but the discussion came up in their classroom about protesters. And this teacher told the classroom that the lady that got run over deserved it. And it broke my granddaughter's heart. He didn't know that she was my granddaughter. But since 2016, every year there's something else. The systemic racism has to stop. Children need to learn that people have other opinions, that there's other lifestyles, that there's other races, there's other ethnicities that need to be taken into consideration of their cultures and their beliefs. And it's not happening in Carson City. We got a bunch of Yahoo, cowboy up racists in these schools. And I hear about it. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 grandchildren here. I hear about it all the time. If it's not the teachers, it's the students. If you're wondering why it was a big deal for some teacher to come up behind a Native kid and grab his braid, that is a religious freedom that these children have. Boys with braids is a thing. It's not something to be scared of. It's not something to wonder why a little boy wants to wear braids. It's religion, it's culture. And we need to have some more cultural training for these teachers. They need to be aware of what they can and cannot get away with. And actually, I wouldn't care if it was a little blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid that a teacher came up and grabbed their braid. It's wrong. Don't you touch my child.
Thank you. Your time is up, but thank you. If we could hold the applause, please. Oh, is another timer? I'm sorry, you had about 10 seconds left if you want to take it.
I'll take it. Mr. Stokes, step up.
We can't substitute
It's
time.
now, sir. Enough already.
All right, thank you. Or,
Let's go.
Barb Mathers, are you here for item number 9 or? All right, come forward, please. State your name for the record.
Barb Mathers, for the record, I sat through the first 2 hours of the last school board meeting in hopes of sharing my public comment, but apparently the teachers didn't get the memo that we were holding a school board meeting, and they all left as soon as the award ceremony was done. So I'm sharing my comments today and submitting what I was going to share to the board for the record. I realized while listening to all the patting on the back awards and self-recognition that helping the Carson City School District is like helping a drug addict. Jessica, feel free to quote that in the appeal. Helping the school district is like helping a drug addict. Until the school board, administrators, and staff admit that there are problems in our education system, it's pretty much pointless to help our kids. Superintendent Stokes said at that last meeting, we're so fortunate to live in a community that values education, who takes such good care of our youth, to watch out not only for the academic well-being, but for the social and emotional well-being to our students. Clearly, the social and emotional is not being taken care of for our students. I've been attending these meetings for over a year, and improvements have not been made. If anything, it's worse. Our school district is set up like the analogy that has a cliff without a fence for protection for the kids. They're just gonna fall off, but there's an ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. You guys have 20 ambulances set up with overpaid administrators, multiple principals at a school board not acknowledging that critical race theory is being taught in the schools, and you either pretend that the problems don't exist, or you have a solution that doesn't even address the problems. This is a message for all of the parents who haven't pulled their kids out of the public school system yet, and teachers who are nervous about speaking out because they don't want to lose their jobs. I know it's a sacrifice to be a whistleblower and share the inappropriate things your coworkers are teaching in their classrooms, but we've reached a breaking point. The only way forward is for parents to take their kids out of the public school system and for teachers to speak up. I recently attended our first Northern Nevada Home Education Conference that was put on by the Commonwealth, Light, Truth, and Intelligence that my children attend. There are a lot of parents who homeschool in our area, and there's a lot of support for the parents who are afraid of pulling their kids out of the system. Trust me, I know. I work full-time. It's really hard to work full-time and homeschool my kids, but I'm doing it. And anything that's worth it is generally difficult. I know that homeschooling is the only option for my kids, and pulling our kids out of the public system is really the only option for truly getting a good education. Parents, pull your kids out. Talk to me afterwards about resources. I have copies to share, and I'm submitting them to the board for the record as well. Please, teachers, stand up and be strong. Help us fix the problems. Build that fence at the top of the cliff instead of the ambulances at the bottom. You guys have got to acknowledge the problems. We're 50th in the nation because we're failing our children. You have to acknowledge the problems. Parents, look into homeschooling. There are so many options, co-ops, pod
Thank you,
schools,
Barb.
commonwealths. Just get your kids out.
We'll go ahead and put the rest in the record. Thank you. Maxine Bradshaw, are you here for number 9? Okay. Then anybody else for public comment want to come forward? Please come forward and state your name for the record.
My name is Mary Ann Humphrey. I'm a Carson City resident. I am speaking on this part because I feel very strongly, and after listening to the American Indian people talk, it's more appalling to me. This whole critical race theory that they're teaching throughout this whole country is absolutely wrong. It teaches more prejudice and everything else. I grew up in San Francisco in the 60s and went to school in the 60s there. I had black people, I had Samoan people, had American Indians. I had all kinds of races and cult people, and we all got along okay. We didn't have all this division of kids and people treating other people differently. And this is what happens when the school teaches critical race theory. This is the garbage you get. Kids treat other kids like garbage, and that's wrong. Teachers should not be, saying because a child has a long braid, so what? Her job or his job is to educate people in the basic fundamental courses so they can succeed in life, not transgenderism and not critical race theory. Because the more you teach that, the more diverse and prejudiced that people are going to be. It's despicable. You guys all had a decent education, I hope. I didn't have a really decent education because where I went to school, but I still grew up with morals and values and acknowledged people and how to treat people. I went through during all the racial problems, but I had a lot of black kids that were my friends. It didn't matter. We all liked each other. So, you got to change these things that are going on. This is despicable. And it breaks my heart to see this going on, not only here, but everywhere. And it has to stop. And why can't Carson be one of the first districts to step up and stop this garbage? I'm going to be 70, so I've seen a lot and I've experienced a lot. So it's got to stop.
Thank you. Any other in-person public comment? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close in-person public comment and go to any online public comment.
No, Mr. Varner, I have a comment for items 9 and 10.
All right, thank you. Then we'll move on to the next agenda item, number 8, presentation by a participant in the Miss Nevada USA Scholarship Organization to discuss potential ideas on educating youth on the U.S. Constitution at the elementary school level. Karina Ferris?
Yes.
Did I get your first name right or not?
Yep, you got it right.
Oh, good.
Is this loud enough? Am I good? Okay. Well, again, I'm Karina Ferris, and I actually just finished my second year of college today. I submitted my last final today. I will be graduating a year early, though, so next May. I'll be graduating with a degree in political science and in history, and after that, I'm planning to go to law school at the University of Georgetown, and eventually, hopefully, run for office someday. But currently, I am Miss Sierra Nevada with the Miss Nevada organization. We are a part of the Miss America program. The Miss America program is a scholarship program that promotes education and service and is the largest scholarship provider for women in the country. Today, I'm here on behalf of the Miss America organization, as well as my own program that I created through that program, which is called Inform to Reform. Inform to Reform is a community service-based program that advocates for political activism and constitutional knowledge. My main goal with this program is to not only increase voter education and voter turnout, but to also increase voter knowledge and education starting at a young age. Today, I'll be sharing with you guys my plan to help educate Nevada students on the Constitution. And I'll share some steps with you that I've already taken before coming here. But before we get into that, I want to share a few statistics with you guys about voters in Nevada. Currently, we have about 130,000 registered voters in Nevada from the ages 18 to 24. Although this may seem like a very large number, this is actually the age group with the lowest number of registered voters. And this trend can be seen across the whole country, not only in Nevada. In that group of registered voters here in Nevada, about only 53% of them actually participated in the 2020 election. This is a major issue because if our youth population is not participating in elections, our country and our state and our local governments are missing out on a substantial portion of our country's needs. So with this, I think our first step to fixing this problem is education starting in our youth, because with education comes inspiration. So far in our current curriculum, there are only 3 direct introductions to the constitutional education. There's introduction at 5th grade, 8th grade, and again at 12th grade. But these 3 introductions are not enough to pique all of students' interests in government and in fully participating when they turn 18. We cannot expect fresh 18-year-old voters to be interested in government and politics, as well as make strong, educated voting decisions if we do not give them the support and the resources around this topic as they grow through the K-12 school system. If we advocate for an increase in direct constitutional instruction at a younger age, we can give students the tools they need to make strong and educated voting decisions and can also inspire them to be more politically active in their future. So back to my plan and the steps I've already taken. So far, over the past few months, I've been lucky enough to visit 15 elementary school classrooms around our local schools. When I go there, I actually created my own lesson where I taught them about the lawmaking process, and then we did a classroom activity. I actually have a student here with me today who I was in her classroom. She's also a Nevada State Princess with the Miss Nevada organization. It's a mentoring program where she gets to come to community service events with me. So I'm going to have her tell you guys a little bit about what she learned when I came to her class.
So my name is Maddie, and we did an activity in our class where we made this law, and our teacher was the president, and half of the class was the House of Representatives, and the other half was the Senate. So we made the law that was no talking when personal reading. So we sent it to the House of Representatives. When they were done voting and saying if they want to or don't, they sent it to the Senate. And when the Senate was done, they sent it to the president, also known as the teacher. And the teacher decided if she doesn't like it or does. And then she signed her name. And once she was done, we all said that was now our new law. So then we just kept going on, and some didn't. So we pretended this little jail in class. And they went there for about 5 minutes, and then they came back. So thank you.
Thank you.
So as she was saying, I originally came into their classrooms and I had a presentation where, if you guys know Schoolhouse Rock, I played the I'm Just a Bill video for them. I like that one a lot too. So I played that, and then I walked them through who their legislatures are here in Nevada, how they can contact their Congress members, how they can get their parents to contact their Congress members, and then through the lawmaking process, and then we finally finished with their activity that she just explained. So as you can see, students her age are ready for this type of education to be introduced to them. They're capable, they're excited about it, and they want to learn about the country that they live in. So I'm going to share with you guys a few ideas that I have that we could possibly work on implementing into our young grade system. So I believe while Maddie is in 3rd grade, I do think that children can start learning about these topics at 2nd grade. So for 2nd grade, I'm proposing that they start covering parts of the federal government, such as the lawmaking process, discussing who their local representatives are and how to reach them, and maybe even doing an activity where they write a letter to their Congress members. That's a good way to get them excited about future voting. Moving on to 3rd grade, I think this would be the perfect time to introduce the Bill of Rights and to go over the first 10 amendments in that Bill of Rights. I think we can also here go over the roles of the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. Since they learned in 2nd grade about the lawmaking process, which includes all 3 branches, they can then later learn about this in 3rd grade. For 4th grade, they already are learning about the Nevada history and the Nevada government. So I think a good way to introduce federal government into Nevada lessons would be the discussion of dual federalism, which is the state and the federal branches working together. So I think with the introduction of dual federalism, we can show what types of policies that states have to follow because they're federal policies, and we can explain what types of policies that are left to states' decisions, such as education. Moving into 5th grade, I think 5th grade would be the perfect time to mention elections. Teaching them about the election cycles, along with the primaries, the general election, and then local and state elections as well. Knowing that they have locally elected members here at the school board meetings that they can come and listen to and interact with is a great way to get involved in elections. I think here we can also teach them about how to register to vote, where you can register to vote, and what different polling places and different election laws. The issues with uninvolved and uneducated voters start young, but they impact the whole country in the long run. My ultimate goal is to not only reach Carson City, but every single school district in Nevada. I've currently also worked with Lyon County, so I'm hoping to implement this around the whole entire state and eventually hope Nevada will adopt this initiative, because in order to reform our entire country, we need to inform our youth. Thank you.
Thank you. Please stand by for a second. I'm going to open up for the board. They may have some questions for you or some comments. So any discussion from the board? Any comments? Any questions? Go ahead.
Just a comment. I appreciate your efforts and work in this, and session in Nevada is starting next February. And that is where the Nevada Academic Content Standards, where we get instruction on what we are to teach at each grade level. And if this is something that you're interested in, that would be start working with maybe one of your local representatives to see if that's something, if you want it to go statewide, it would have to come through
From the state.
through the state.
Yes, thank you.
Joe, go ahead.
Karina, thanks for coming.
Thank you for
Karina
having me.
approached me a while ago and said, I have this idea. How should I kind of get the word out and start? And who should I talk to? So I thought it might be a nice idea for her to come here. And maybe one thing you can do, Trustee Crossman's right. I mean, as I told you, we have the academic content standards, and the state, dictates a lot of this stuff, all of it, and how we do it. And I think we need to approach them. And if we want to introduce this, we have to. But I think what might, excuse me, been a long day. What might be a nice way to start, if she has some time and she's willing, and I'm sure she's willing, would be to get with Mrs. Fuson and maybe chat with her about some of this, and she might be able to give you, some ideas, so you're not just showing up at the legislative sessions.
Perfect. Thank you.
And if you need someone to sit by you, I'd be happy to join you as well.
Thank you.
So
That'd be awesome.
thanks for what you're doing. It takes, it's hard to come in front of the podium and chat about things.
I was a little bit nervous.
Yeah. So no, good for you. I mean, you're an example of, some of the good we produce here, and I appreciate you coming forward, and congratulations in college too.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. You did a good presentation. You didn't appear to be nervous, so that's good.
Good.
And there are teachers that are doing that. I know when my kids were in school, Mr. Test in 5th grade, they would have elections, and they had, he did it around the Revolution War. You had to make a dish that we did squirrel stew. We used chicken though. So that is going by, I know. But it is, one of the things in Laurel, and I can both tell you, is when we go to the legislature for our association, it means a lot when it's people your age and even your age telling the lawmakers, you guys have a lot more say and you hold a lot more responsibility than you think. They don't want to really hear it from us grown-ups, but they really do enjoy hearing it. It has a lot more power when it comes to you guys. So the more you can do there, the better off you are.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, good luck and thank you. Appreciate it. We'll move on to agenda item number 9. Discussion and possible action to approve the Family Life Advisory Committee Rules of Procedure for the Carson City School District. And this is for possible action. And we have Cheryl Macy and Sheila Story to present. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sheila Story. I'm the chair of the Family Life Advisory Committee for the Carson City School District. I'm the chief nurse for the school district and the school nurse at Carson High School.
Good evening, President Varner, members of the board. I'm Cheryl Macy, and I support Mrs. Story, who is the chair of the Family Life Advisory Committee. And just a little bit of background, according to NRS, you are to have a Family Life Advisory Committee that functions under your aegis. And this particular committee that we had this year decided that it had been a few years since we had looked at our rules of procedures. And so they decided they wanted to revise them and submit them to you for review. So I would like to go through some of the key points in here and explain the thinking behind them and let you decide what you want to do with that, of course. I want to start by saying that most of the changes you'll notice are small, technical, grammatical, even a couple spelling changes. And there are a couple spots where it looks like there's typos, but that's because we kept the document in the tracked changes mode. And so sometimes that messes with the formatting. So some words are squished together. But once those track changes are accepted or denied, it'll revert to its original format. So originally, the rules of procedures were revised in September 2019, and this committee spent the whole year basically this year revising these procedures. I'd say that the first content change is on page 4. And we wanted to articulate that the purpose of the Family Life Committee, according to NRS, is really only to review materials that are submitted to the board as materials to be used in our family life units, primarily in our health classes. We wanted to articulate that because sometimes people bring items to the committee that really aren't appropriate for the committee to be approving or not approving. So it's strictly family life advisory. However, the committee does, for example, we had Dr. Ward and one of our sheriff's deputies present on their program that they're using to replace the DARE program, and that was for informational purposes only. We weren't approving or disapproving that. On page 5, you will note that the committee is suggesting that they submit materials at least twice a year to this school board for approval. So what has happened in the past is that when the committee approved a material, that went straight back to the teacher, yes, you can use this material. And we realize that's really not the intent of NRS. The intent is for the committee to review and then to submit it to the board for approval. So we wrote that in there to articulate that change in procedures. The committee would really like there not to be a lot of delay between a teacher requesting to use the material and being able to use the material. So rather than waiting till the end of the year, which is when I think materials were run by the board, they want us to come at least twice a year to submit, but even more frequently if a teacher needs a material soon. So it might be they're going to be teaching the family life unit in March and they find something in February. So they don't want teachers to have to wait a year to use a resource. On page 8, we revised the committee membership. And actually, in hindsight, we realized that maybe we shouldn't have done that. So I'll explain the thinking behind that and explain how I've come to realize that maybe we shouldn't have done that. So traditionally on this board, we have a pupil who represents the student perspective. And traditionally, that student has been a non-voting member of that committee. So the committee decided to move the student from that list of occupations because it didn't seem to fit there and moved it down to its own item. Because they're non-voting, the committee thought it might be nice to have more student perspective on the committee and suggest up to 4. So it doesn't have to be 4, but up to 4. And what I have realized since then is that language as it was originally written was taken directly from NRS. So we probably need to revert that back to its original verbiage. It is a little confusing. It begs the question, should the student then be a voting member or not? And it also begs the question of what the "or" is pertaining to. So if you'll see there on the original verbiage, "or" came after pupils. So is it pupils or teachers, or is it the "or" pertaining to the entire list, right? And so that's something for the board to consider. On page 9, this came up when we had some new members come along, that traditionally what we have done in the past is somebody submitted, if they were already a member and they wanted to continue, they just submitted, I want to continue, and they continued. And it became clear, I think, to all of us that that really isn't maybe the best way to approach things, and that at a certain point, if somebody's term is up, it needs to be opened up to the public. So that's what that verbiage articulates there. On page 13, we're just indicating that we are doing these meetings now in a high flex model, which means that we do them in a mix of in-person and online via Zoom. We post those Zoom links online on the agenda, so anybody can participate via Zoom if they would like to. And also because of that, we have moved, and we'll actually need to change that too. We moved the meetings from Carson High School to the district office board meeting because it's just physically set up better for that kind of meeting. On page 14, we just added language that said that the committee can vote to table an item and that it has to be a unanimous vote. And then for public comment on page 17,
Cheryl, just
yes.
for clarification, why do you want it to be unanimous? Why did you want that to happen?
Do you remember, Sheila?
Number 14.
I think we actually might have moved that from another section.
Yeah,
I think the
believe
thinking
was already
behind
in
it was if there's somebody there who has a strong opinion that might be different from others, that it not be tabled to avoid somebody being able to vote.
Right.
Yeah. And then on page 17, for the first time, I think in all of the time that Sheila has chaired this committee, we've had members from the public show up, and it's great to have people who are interested and willing to dedicate a Monday night to thinking about what we're teaching in our public schools. So we wanted to have some structure to how we accept public comment, because we didn't at first, and our meetings were a little maybe not as organized as we would like. And so we added some verbiage there on how those comments can be submitted. They can be submitted digitally. And we decided on a 2-minute limit to comments. On page 18, it's just indicating that amendments have to be submitted to this school board. And on page 19, it's articulating more explicitly about what happens with the materials, what can be submitted, and what we do with those materials. So we have an approved content toolbox, which is really nothing but a list of resources that have been approved for teachers to use for the Family Life Advisory Committee. And these are maintained by Mrs. Story, our chair. Mrs. Story, is there anything that you want to add?
Throughout the year, we met and we had really good discussion in regards to how we wanted to review and improve our rules and procedures. So I believe the information that we've added will only help us in regards to doing better work for our school district, following the rules and procedures better, and help, use it as a guide. So, we get more materials approved. You guys have more access to the materials to review and approve also. So I think in accordance with NRS and with the Carson City School District, I think the proposed changes are good ones that will help us to only do better work in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll open up for comments and questions from the board. Laurel?
Just a couple comments I have. First of all, I put table of contents first, just since background is listed. And then when you've got background, I think it would be important to list in its entirety NRS 389.036 and use the actual language of that statute and all its subsections, because that includes the makeup of the committee and everything. And I agree that the statute isn't totally clear on the number of students to be on a committee, so that may be a decision the board directs the committee how to do, or we take the committee's recommendation for 4. So those are kind of my main points right now.
Joe, go ahead.
Thank you. So I have a fair amount of comments, and I'm going to offer them to you afterwards. I'm not going to go through every single one for the interest of time, but I organized them. Kind of red is what I'd like to see added, and blue are my thoughts, where I was going with it. But if I could go through some of them, and I don't think I'm ready to approve this tonight. I probably would, my preference would be to see it come back to us with some revisions. But I like Trustee Crossman's comment. I think it's important to include, NRS right up front at the beginning so people know exactly what it says. This is a committee that is required to be established by all school boards. So in section 1.2, that's paragraph starts off, only content and materials which are presented. I thought we should probably add in age appropriateness just so we replicate what it says in the NRS. And I wanted to end that sentence with, it ends with, and approved by the board. I think it's important to say before adoption and use. And throughout the document, it says, committee approval, things like that. And the committee is advisory to the school board. So I think we should be careful with that language, that upon committee recommendation and school board approval. And that occurs, throughout, so I won't go through each place, but again, I'll provide this to you. But it happens a couple of times in section 1.2. If we add the NRS in here, I'm not even sure if that last paragraph or second to last paragraph in 1.2 even needs to be there. But then the last paragraph starts off, Family Life Advisory Committee materials will be approved by the board. And it says at a minimum twice each year using a consent agenda. I think this is important enough to where it should be an agendized item, and we should review it for approval. So my thought would be that last paragraph, this is the one that I should have brought water. It says Family Life Advisory Committee materials will be approved by the board. I scratched out the rest and added, upon committee recommendation and prior to adoption and use, recommendations of the committee shall be placed on the board agenda as individual action items for board discussion and board voting. And again, if you don't get all that, I'll give this to you. I ran a copy. 1.3 didn't really have any comments necessarily, except at the very end. I thought we should add a sentence that basically said, if recommended for approval, the committee's recommendation shall be placed on the board agenda, as I mentioned before. Article 2 got back to what you were saying about the size of the committee. As I read it, they were pretty clear when they wrote the NRS what they wanted. They didn't say at a minimum or anything. So just reading it verbatim, it's set up for 9 people, 5 parents and 4 people in these various professions. And then one of them says, or, it says pupil or teaching, and teaching's kind of weird the way they worded it. But as I read it, items 4 and 5, it says pupils who attend schools in the district or teaching, so it's one or the other. That's my interpretation. I don't know if I'm right, but I think the intent was 9 people. And as you said, people are allowed to come to your meetings. It'd be great if more students came. I just don't know if we want to make them part of the committee. I'd love it if a bunch of students came. Go ahead. Looking at the wrong thing.
Can I respond to your last
Please.
comment? Okay, this is the English teacher in me.
Yeah.
Since all of those items have a semicolon after them, I read the or as being from the following occupations, and that or is pertaining to all of them.
And it could be.
not student or teacher.
And I'd be willing to be corrected on that. That's
Okay.
fine with me.
Oh, I think Mr. Russell has a comment also.
Yes.
I'll just jump in a little bit. So paragraph B of 2.1 starts out with 4 representatives, and then they list 5 categories. It's definitely an or.
Yeah.
And it's definitely, I think, meant to be 9 total.
Okay. And I would agree with that. So it's any of those, it's 4 of the 5 they list. I think to your point, and as I understand, Mr. Russell. Let's see.
And just the fact that they use pupils in the plural, it would indicate that it's more than, that they anticipated possibly more than 9. So did they intend for pupils to be voting members? Did they intend?
Yeah,
It's not
it's
totally
unclear.
clear in that.
But, you know, and I read it. I read it a bunch of times, and I emailed Mr. Russell because I couldn't quite get there myself. But I don't know, but that's my thoughts on it. Then when I go down to section 2.2, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth line down. See if I can find the start of that sentence. I'll just jump in the middle. The 4th line down starts with continuing. Continuing until the member's replacement has been appointed by the board. And then I just added, or the member resigns or is dismissed by the board. Just so it kind of covers, I think, all the bases there and doesn't limit you. And then if I jump to page 10, section 2.3, rotation of terms. It starts off as the date of the committee's approval. I thought it should change committee to board as a date of the board's approval. And then midway through there, it talks again about another through a vote of the board. And then when you go down to 2.4, you talk about reasons for termination, attendance in meetings. But just above 2.3, we talk about continuous being based on poor attendance, failure to disruptive or disrespectful behavior. And I thought maybe 2.4 should include all 3 of those, because we just talked about attendance and the others didn't get their due attention. And then nothing on 11, on 12. I'm trying to go through this quick. Just before 2.5, and I guess on 11 bleeding into 12, once a member misses 3 meetings in 1 school year, that fact should be brought to the attention of the school board. It's just my own personal opinion. I hate should. I like shall, because should's kind of subjective. Should be brought to the attention, or shall be brought to the attention of the school board as an action item on the agenda for potential dismissal or something like that. And then under 2.5 vacancies, all committee vacancies shall be filled by the board. I just thought I'd add through committee recommendation, or I guess public letters of interest, right? Because we get, you're gonna recommend somebody, or someone's gonna write a letter saying, hey, I'd like to be a part of this committee. I know we haven't had a lot of that in years past, but it could happen. 2 points, nothing on 2.61, 2.62. The administrative assistant to the associate superintendent for educational services or the committee chair shall serve as the secretary. I've sat on a few different boards, and I think it's hard to be the committee chair and take notes. I don't know if they're the best person to serve as secretary.
And actually, that's my role. That's what I do.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we changed that. This will be the 3rd year. For 2 years, Tasha Fuson attended, and she helped take notes while I conducted the meeting. And then this year, Cheryl Macy stepped in for that position. So,
Okay.
and real quick, up here at the top, you said the vacancies. We also requested a resume and a cover letter when they wanted to apply for a vacancy. So we can also add resume to 2.5.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. Thank you. Article 3, You had answered that question already. It says the high school. I had just put or alternate school district location. I wasn't sure it'd be appropriate to hold the meetings in someone's house or something like that. Meeting, let's see, 3.2. Oh, yeah. So as I got into this, a lot of the sentences now say, starts off in the fall of each year, the chair shall coordinate the scheduling of the first meeting of the year. But the meetings don't start till you said you have to start by October. So you could have a meeting in January and it's not really the first meeting of the school year. So I wondered if it might be best to say first meeting of the school year or something like that, because it sounds like the years kind of start in the fall. Does that make sense? Otherwise, somebody could read it and say, wait, the January meeting should include this, but really you're halfway through your annual cycle. So school year is what I was asking for, and that shows up in 322 and a couple other places. And then we talk about regularly scheduled meetings, 322. And there's some wording in there about substantive items. If we're going to follow, and I guess it's a question as much as anything, if we're going to be following the open meeting law, all decisions have to be voted on. Is that true for this committee as well? So some of it kind of read at the discretion of the chair. And I think anything that's basically an action item or has to be decided on has to be a vote of the committee. And then if that's the recommendation of the committee, then it goes to the board.
And that's how it has gone. I've made no decisions on my own.
I try not to either. And again, I'll give this to you, but that's, just to keep you guys from getting into trouble, I think we should be following the open meeting law. And if you have to have something that's decided on, just have to call for a vote. In 323, there was a duplicate sentence.
Yep.
So if you just read the first paragraph, or the only paragraph in 323, it says the chair may call, and that shows up twice. And then it says, if 3 or more members of the committee request that the chair call a special meeting, if you have 9 people on there, that might need to be a quorum. So I don't know if it can just be 3. Does it have to be 5 or?
Mr.
No,
Russell?
it's not a decision of the board. It's just giving the committee members the ability to request that the chair agendize an item.
Okay.
It should be less than a quorum in that instance for sure.
Okay, so we're okay there.
Yep.
Great, thank you. And almost done. The bulk of it was in the beginning, then it started wearing out. I mentioned that before. That's about, action items. I had asked Mr. Russell about if you're conducting your committee per the open meeting law and something doesn't get done properly, does it come back to the board? Do we get in trouble? And he said, no, your actions are your actions. And so that's why I wanted to make sure that you're conducting it in accordance with the open meeting law so nobody gets in trouble.
Thank you.
And then 342 on page 16, it ends with by the open meeting laws. And I think it's just one law, so I just crossed out the S. And then 351, you discussed this in part in 324, and I wondered if these two sections should just be combined. Under 361, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences down, 3 words in, it starts at the conclusion of the discussion. It talks about there's a motion, there's a second, then there's discussion, and it says at the conclusion of the discussion, the matter shall be submitted for a vote, but I think we skipped over the public input portion. Right, so usually the board votes, or the board discusses it, then you open it up for public input, and then it comes back for a vote. And then throughout, that pertains to the vote, so I don't need to go over that. My other one covers it. Forward, we covered that. Under public comment 3.8, that's just pulled out of the same language we see. I don't have any issue with that. That's fine. Article 4, page 18. Again, that school year versus year comes up again. And then the last sentence under 4.1 starts off, once the committee has voted, blah, blah, blah. The last sentence says the board has the final vote on the rules and procedures. Amendments are not effective until the date of board approval. You were mentioning you'd like to get this passed through as much as possible, and I had said I'd rather not see it on a consent agenda, but to be brought forth, and I just thought it'd be nice if we could get this. Sometimes you can't catch the next board meeting, but over the next 2 school board meetings, seems like we could get that on the agenda so we don't hold you up, so I added some of that language in there. And then Article 6. It starts off, all content for consideration must be submitted to the committee chair to be placed on the following meeting's agenda. And I just added, provided it is received in time to allow for open meeting law posting compliance. If somebody says, I want this included, and they give it to you the night before the meeting, it's already been posted. So I just wanted that to be clear for anybody who reads this. And then you talk about the approved content toolbox. Says it will be maintained by the committee chair and posted on the Family Life Advisory Committee's page on the district website. And I just added after board approval, just again to keep everybody safe. And I did that again at the end of the 3rd paragraph. I just added after board approval. And yay, I made it to the end. And then the last question, I usually don't have this many comments, but I couldn't sleep last night. So your committee members right now, there's 10 of you on this sheet, and are there 9 voting members? And I just thought it might be when you update it, just mention who. I guess the easiest way is who's not a voting member of the 10. Okay.
And our student traditionally has not been a voting member.
And that'd be a question I would have for Mr. Russell. I don't. Can a student be a voting member?
I think the way the statute is written, if you have the student fill one of those 5 listed positions, then they're a voting member.
Okay. And that's everything I have, and I'll leave this to you. Thanks for being patient.
Before we move on from that page, when you say the approved content toolbox, I had no idea what that is, and I'm sure other people who read that won't know what it is, so if that could be defined.
Yeah, I think it would be clearer to rephrase that as the approved list of resources, which would be consistent with the verbiage earlier in the document.
Joe, thank you for your comments. You took a lot of mine, but I appreciate it.
I'm happy to rest for a minute.
Stacy, you have comments? Dawn, any comments? Lupe?
I do have a question for the group of parents that let's see, how many do we have here? So for the individuals that are serving as parents, are these non-school district employees, or are they part of the school district?
None of the parents are school district employees. We do have our medical representative and our religious representative are both also district employees.
But we have in the past had parents that were were teachers.
No,
That is correct.
I appreciate having parents that are not in the district. Yeah. And then just for the record, I did get comments from a member of the public, or from a member from the community, and I did not get a chance to go through every single comment because I just got that last night. So I will forward those comments to you guys just so that you guys can recognize them.
Okay, thank you.
Laurel?
Just, I think with all the information and changes that Joe has recommended, to me, this feels like it's a first reading, and we should bring it back to review. Again, I would like Mr. Russell also to review it with the changes that are there, just to make sure we're in compliance with NRS.
Thank you. I also have some comments, and thank Joe for taking some of them. Thank you. But anyway, on page number 4, when it says the last paragraph, second sentence, is taught by a teacher or school nurse whose qualifications have been previously approved by the board. Does that mean they have to come before the board to get approved, or is it just that they're certified and hired already? Is that the approval?
I think we'll have to get clarification on that.
Okay, that was a question I had when it says that. I was wondering how we do that.
I think somewhere in the document, if I remember reading it, it talks about how new committee members or proposed committee members come in front of the board for approval.
Yeah, but this is the teacher or the
School nurse.
medical professional who's teaching it.
Yeah, and I did have a question about that, but I assumed if they're licensed and they have a resume and all that. I'm not sure I'm qualified to decide if a nurse is qualified to hold the position of a nurse at the school district.
Yeah, I just wondering how that approval went. And then there's also comments from the public, which you'll get a copy of on that.
So real quick, if I can go back to that, it does state that a school nurse has to have a 4-year degree. All 4-year nurses within the state of Nevada has to have an endorsement through the Department of Education. We basically have to go through the same credentialing that a teacher has to go through in regards to taking the praxis, taking Nevada school law, and all those other stipulations, just so you know.
Yeah. Then before I move on, I also agree with Joe that I think it should come before a regular agenda item and not a consent agenda for the materials that can be taught. On page 5, just a little thing on this. If you look at the first paragraph, second sentence, where it says approved and adopted by the board as requested by the legislation. Should we put NRS there, or is legislation, you think, okay?
I think the more specific we are with what the statute is, that is more clear and
that's
just
what-
to be consistent throughout.
So would you like us to add Nevada revised statute
Yeah,
there?
I think so then.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
No. I think being in compliance with the statute is really smart. And I think one of the great ways to do it is to include the entire text of the statute at the beginning. You could take care of it with the definition so that in this line, it could just say approved by the committee and adopted by the board, period. Because if we couch the entire policies and procedures under Chapter 389, then I don't think we have to keep repeating it.
Okay, I think it's a great idea. Go ahead.
Just a question, and Mr. Russell, it's maybe for you, but there's section 4 and 5 of the NRS do talk about the notice. When these courses are offered, that parents need to be given written notice for that. Should that be included within this because this is the governing, these are the procedures that govern the committee. Should that be included here, or do we have a separate district policy for the family life committee, which I didn't look it up in our policies, but just wondering, I feel like we should have it somewhere, and I just don't know which spot would be the best for it.
Again, I think if we include the entire statute as part of the policies and procedures, then it's there right up at the front.
And just for you guys' information, each health teacher does send out that notification to parents prior to any type of family life material being presented within the classroom.
Do we have or should we consider having something on our school district website to where if somebody, they'd have a place to go to just find certain materials?
We list the resources on our Family Life Advisory Committee portion of the school district's webpage.
So it's on the webpage. So somebody could go to the webpage and get this information.
Yeah. The list of resources.
Okay, thanks. Moving on to page number 6, there are some comments from a public member also that you will get and you should look at. I'm wondering on 1.3 and 1.4, do we need to separate them out so much? Some of it's kind of redundant, I thought, if you go through that. So you might want to take a look at that and maybe you can shorten it up a little bit. The document in some places, I think, becomes kind of wordy and could maybe be condensed, more concise.
And I think to Mr. Russell's point, if we add the NRS right at the beginning, some of this language could just go away and the document could become a little shorter.
Yeah, I think that we ought to look at shortening it up and making it more concise, like I said. And I appreciate you pointing out that the formatting was not right and some of the words ran together. So I know you'll pick those up. Then I had the same comment Joe had on 2.3, is just revert that to the language, or I think you brought it up, Cheryl, about reverting it to the language of the NRS. On the next one, down under 2.1C, I guess I had a question when you said that the term of the pupils, students, would be a 2-year term. Does that mean, what age group are we looking at? Are we looking at trying to bring on sophomores on so they can be sophomore and junior year, or are we looking at junior and so they can become a senior while they're doing that? Or I guess my question is, what kind of age group are we targeting?
So basically, you put it out to all high school students starting as freshmen. Freshman to sophomore, sophomore to junior, junior to senior. And I will tell you, it's been difficult to find students to be on the board. We have had in the past 6 students attend a meeting. That was very nice. They gave very good, insightful information and understanding of the content we were presenting. But since then, we generally have about 1 or 2 students who have been regulars in regards to coming to our committee members and participating. So it is difficult to find students to come forward and be on this committee.
Yeah, I thought about that too. I don't know if you might just make it 3 years for everybody. And because you have and we have the ability to remove people if we need to. And certainly if they don't want to be a part of it anymore, they can step down. So it probably doesn't hurt anything just to keep it simple and make it everybody the same term.
Then I would assume that the approval process for them would be the same as the other members, where they have to submit a letter of interest and come before the board for approval.
Yes, we never had to do that before, but if we are going to follow what is written in NRS, then we will have to they'll have to provide a resume and a letter of intent and come to the board for your approval.
And I'm not sure about the 3 years for students. That's a lot to ask of a kid. I think if you do the 2 years, you have a little consistency. They'll know the first year what's going on, and then the second year they can, add to it. But I think adding a 3rd year on there, that's a lot, especially if you're a senior.
Yeah, hopefully if you're a senior, you're not sticking around for 3 years as a student.
And I'll have to read it again to make sure, but if we're having difficulty finding students willing to be on it, and then we're going to have them do a resume and come to us, we may have even more difficulty getting students to do that.
Yeah, and I think if it's a student, one, having a resume is good experience. So I like the idea of a resume, but when a student submits a resume, I don't expect it to be a whole lot. It could be kind of a simple paragraph format. I'm a junior at Carson High School or Pioneer High School, and I'm interested for these reasons. Please consider me. We kind of know what their background is.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of giving them. I don't want them to think because I'm a student I only get 2 years. But I want to make it clear to them that if they decide they don't want to stick around for 3 years, they don't have to. They're not chained to the desk. So I don't know what the best way to do that is. I was just trying to be consistent.
I think we'll be fortunate if one student hangs around 3 years.
I think you're probably right. And that maybe answers my next question then is, for the students, is it kind of getting too large of a group? But if you think we're only going to have one, then that probably handles that question.
Yeah, my understanding was we were going to take that verbiage off of the up to 4 students.
Yeah, okay.
We're going to go with 1, but if you supply pizza, students may show up.
I'd show up. All right. if you go
I'm-
to, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, did we clarify on the years for students?
I'm kind of opposed to the 3-year limit. I think that's asking quite a bit. I don't know, do we need to even set a limit on, is it year by year? I don't know,
We have historically taken them just year by year.
because 3 years is a big commitment.
And that's fine with me. If you think that would hinder students, I'm all for making it year by year. I was thinking the other way. I didn't want them to think they were lesser of a committee member and therefore didn't have the benefit of staying on. But if you think it's going to entice students to be involved, if it's year by year, I'm okay with that. I'd like to encourage students.
Yeah.
And I guess, and my thought is they can step down at any point. The 3-year isn't a commitment, it's up to 3 years, correct? But I'll obviously change the verbiage however the board chooses.
And on page 10, this is kind of a minor thing, but on the first paragraph, the board may reject the continuation of a member for reasons which may include but not be limited to. I just thought maybe take out reasons and put cause. They can be rejected for a cause. And, no? Reasons, okay. That's why he's using it. All right, thank you. Then that changes another thing down here.
Mr. Varner, can we get
Go
your
ahead.
suggestions in writing as well?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll have to rewrite them because we won't read them.
We'll give it our best go.
Okay,
I was an English teacher.
And there again, I think, and maybe Joe already mentioned this on 2.6.2, involving the last paragraph, excuse me, the next to the last sentence, it should say that involving all motions instead of just the substantive motions.
I mentioned it in mine that if it's something that has to be decided on, and it should follow the open meeting law and be a vote.
Then if we could go to the next page, 3.2.2. At the first meeting of each year, the committee members shall set the monthly meetings, blah, blah, blah. Except, I'm wondering why the last meeting is not set, because you put in there, they'll set the meeting times for the meetings except for the last meeting. Unless I'm misreading that.
Sometimes meetings happen or don't happen depending on whether or not there's an agenda item.
So there may not be the last meeting, is what you're saying?
So it depends on if a health teacher or someone else approaches us asking if they can have the information reviewed prior to using, have it approved prior to using it in the classroom. And we have had health teachers come to us like in April saying, hey, we have this material, we'd like to have it approved so we can go ahead and finish up our family life unit. So I always make room for possibly another meeting if needed. And we have had a couple extra meetings in the past several years, so the material does get approved for the teachers to use within the classroom setting. And real quick, I just want to let you guys know, I generally try to schedule 6 meetings a year, not in September, so generally starting in October, and then November, and then December. And then we try to have 3 meetings in the spring season, or spring semester, usually starting in February, because January is sometimes a shorter month due to the holidays. So, but if needed, we do more meetings.
Thank you. In 3.7, conduct of the meeting, it seems like that's awful wordy, and it goes into a lot of detail that I don't think needs to be there, but I think also every person should have the same amount of time. You go into a lot of detail about the amount of agenda items and stuff like that. just everybody should have 3 minutes or 2 minutes, whatever you're going to say, and maybe you can shorten that paragraph up quite a bit.
Yeah, that was pointed out to me that there's an inconsistency there. It says under 3.8, we have specified 2 minutes. So that should be probably taken out of 3.7.
You can specify a length of time. It just has to be consistent for everybody. It's just some of the language in there, I think to your point, Richard, it read kind of subjective, and I think we want to be careful we're not taking comments subjectively.
Yeah,
We hear all comments, whether, they're fun or not, but we have to hear them all, and it's important.
And I would just suggest that maybe, in my mind, 2 minutes is pretty short. We go with 3 minutes, which is a pretty short time for the public to speak, but 2 minutes is cutting it pretty short, in my opinion.
So is the board suggesting that we change that to 3 minutes? Yeah.
That would be my suggestion, but
I think it's probably up to you. I think 3
Yeah.
minutes is fairly customary, but there's no requirement saying it has to be 2, 3, or 4 minutes or whatever. Just has to be consistent.
I think it's up to them, just whatever they decide for the public comment on that. It varies among school districts within the state what time they set for public comment.
The committee, I think, was thinking, they're all parents mostly, and those meetings can run long. And we're trying to open up options for public comment while also trying to keep the meeting and within a reasonable time frame. But we will certainly use whatever time frame the board would like us to.
The way I interpreted that, and maybe I'm wrong, is that based upon what you have on the agenda, you may let the public speak a little bit longer on certain items and not so long on other items. We kind of started that, and then we had to bring it back to the 3 minutes and give everybody the same amount of time, because somebody may say, well, they got 8 minutes. Now you're only telling me I have 2 minutes.
Perhaps Mr. Russell can help direct the drafting of this for the second reading that would include, because open meeting, when you take public comment, you can take it at the beginning and at the end, or you can take it at one time and then on each agenda action item. So it just depends, and you could present various options to them.
That'd be great. And I think that's pretty much all the comments I have. Just to repeat, I would look at maybe making it more concise and taking out some of the excessive wording. And then also, like I said, I know we'll have public comment on some of the items also that's coming up.
Thank you very much.
Don, do you have anything?
Thank
to add?
you.
Stacy, anything more? Anything more, Joe?
And I just want to say thank you to Mrs. Story, who does a fabulous job facilitating these meetings. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll do a motion, second reading.
You want us to take a motion if we're sending it back for?
Yeah, I mean, it would just be a motion to continue with direction to bring the revisions back for further review.
I move that we that we continue agenda item 9 and direct the, is it the Family Life Advisory Committee to review and make changes and bring them back in a future board meeting.
For second reading?
For second reading. Is that good?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Laurel, second by Joe. Now we'll go ahead and open it up for in-person public comment. And I have one person here signed up, Maxine Bradshaw.
My name is Maxine Bradshaw, and I'm here on Agenda 9. In reading this, the approved content toolbox is not defined at all. The list of approved materials totaling 18, as published by the Family Life Advisory Committee, should in its entirety be presented to the parents of Carson City school children and all community members for review, who are the chair, board, members, etc., that gave prior approval of the past dated Family Life Committee materials, because they go back quite a ways on this list. NRS 389036 states, quote, "The Board of Trustees of a school district shall establish a course or unit of a course," unquote, "of instruction to be offered." Judging from the titles of some of these 18 resources, the message from the school district needs to be very strongly stated that this is an opt-in choice. This direction the Family Life Committee and the Carson City School District have taken in approving these highly personal parental topics is stepping far beyond the boundaries of any school district, board or committee, and their scope of authorization to teach. If said board or committee disagrees, then you must go to the link pasted below to see the grotesque, graphic human vulva snapshots that some sick, twisted individuals thought was an appropriate tool to teach anyone else's child at any age. Not an illustration, not a sketch, but the real thing. If you're shocked by what you see, then shame on you for not doing your jobs. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. It is not anyone's place in any capacity except the parents to teach their children about human trafficking, how contraceptives work, and anything LGBTQIAA and the rest of the alphabet. There are so many flaws in these rules of procedures that others will address this evening that this entire report needs to be reviewed and corrected according to NRS and open meeting laws. I now request that my public comment be entered into the record in its entirety as written. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? If so, please come forward, state your name for the record.
Heather Coe. And I'd like to raise a hand, please. Did any of you read and look through all of the approved content? Anyone? Even the people that are ignoring me, looking down. Obviously not. So maybe you should look through the approved content and all the junk that they want to approve. It's disgusting and confusing. So I was watching the news last week, and Nevada is off the charts for suicide for children and teens. And then I saw everything that was approved, and I get why. Because they want to confuse kids. You shut them down, you isolated them, and not singling anyone out. I'm just saying, I went through this with my child, okay? Now he's in a class where he's taught that individualism is horrible and how to be an activist and all these fun things. What does that have to do with math or reading or anything else? That is the only job these people have, to teach our children. There's a reason why homeschooling is off the charts right now, because no one wants to do their part. Okay, everyone should be, this should only be an opt-in, okay? And it should not be for any sixth grader, which a lot of it is. This is so grotesque and so confusing. No wonder children are killing themselves. There's not enough parents. They work. There's a reason why some people can't homeschool. But I can tell you this right now, there is no reason to confuse children, okay? They do not know what they want to be when they grow up, let alone what gender they are. And there are only two. And to lie to kids or to allow this garbage is ridiculous. You're hurting them. You're confusing them at the most confusing time of their lives. And teaching them math and getting them caught up in everything that they lost when you shut down the schools is the only thing that anyone should be focused on. Thank you.
Any other public comment? If so, please come forward and state your name for the record.
Hi, my name's Lisa Partee, and I would like my comments for the record submitted as appropriately. A lot of this, I'm grateful for you guys have addressed some of my thoughts and everything. You guys really came through with some of it. But after I had reviewed some of the draft rules of the procedure for the Family Life Advisory Committee, I was perplexed on many instances, but there are so many instances where the advisory board indicates they'll actually approve items for the board and such. It's actually my understanding, the board's job to approve items, and some things are actually conflicting statements, but there was too many to point out, and as was discussed. So thank you for bringing that and pointing it out so that they can take care of that. But I feel that it really needs a thorough going over by, and Trustee Crossman brought this up, an attorney and someone familiar with the laws, and that was in my opinion as well. And as to the conduct of the meeting, I was concerned about the time allotted for public comment that could be adjusted at a whim. Trustee Varner brought that up, and hopefully they can fix that as well. I don't think 2 minutes was very fair. I understand that there are a lot of parents that come to these meetings, but there's really not that many parents. I think it's not as many parents as there should be. But I hope that you would give them as much time as you would anyone else, because this is their kids that they're talking about. But I was worried that you would be able to limit the speakers to 30 seconds if you determined the need would be. So if you guys could please allow a minimum of 3 minutes going forward, that would be appreciated. As to the Article 6 approved content toolbox, I know she's going to change the name on that, but that indicates that the committee chair maintains this list of approved materials on the district websites, but only health teachers will have access to this. Again, this was just brought up again, and hopefully I was hoping we could have transparency regarding this so that the public can see what the materials are as well. I don't think it should just be the guardian, the parent. There are other people involved raising families in this area. Also, my understanding is that they were going to provide the board the materials on the same day that they want you to approve them, but from hearing today, that probably will not be the case. There'll be an agendized item, and then you guys will have time to review a reasonable amount of time. So that makes me feel better too. But I do think that there needs some assistance in drafting this very important document, and I appreciate everybody's input today. Thank you so much.
And thank you. Any other public comment? If so, please come forward and state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name's Dave Partee. I was going to mention quite a few things about this document because of the inconsistencies and errors that I saw in it. But Member Cassiopo and President Varner, you brought up most of the things that I had. So I don't know that I need to go through most of this at this point. But I am going to submit my comments so that, they can use them, because there is a few things in here that I thought should also be adjusted. The biggest thing, and I know you guys have already commented on it, is that the committee is only an advisory group and it does not have approval authority. And I think that should go all the way with the materials that are going to be used. I believe that is also supposed to be approved by the board, and I'm not sure that has ever been done. So that really should be done as well. Those materials should be brought before the board for approval. Let's see. We already talked about this not being a consent agenda and it should be action. So really all the things that I have written down at this point has already been gone over. So I really don't want to waste too much of your time or everybody else's on this, but I would like to submit these comments. So.
If you submit them, we'll make sure they get in the record.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Let's come forward and state your name for the record, please.
Pepsi Strasburg. First, I'd like to thank Trustee Cassiopo and Richard Varner for their detailed review of the document. We appreciate it. It makes our job a lot easier to make public comments. So I'm going to limit my comments to on page 19, Article 6, approved content toolbox. They were 18 resources previously reviewed by the Family Life Committee that did not come to the board for approval. And I think all of those 18 that is being used by the teachers at the different grade levels need to be approved by the board, and no grandfathering, because there are some material that was developed not just last year, but the previous year. No grandfathering should be used. Simply because we have a opt-in form which has never been tested by a audit or a public records request does not mean that any material that is not approved by this board can be offered to the students. And I didn't see in the document anything about what guidelines the committee has regarding the age criteria. How do they choose which classes should go to what grade level? And I didn't see any of that in that procedure. Like the textbooks, all of the material need to be reviewed by parents, and they have soft media, videos, movies, handouts, presentation, must be explicitly reviewed by the parents and approved by this board. Until that approval is obtained, the material needs to be removed from the approved content toolbox. Simply telling the teachers that the material is not approved is not sufficient. If the school board does not have the time to do the necessary due diligence of the material, then I would recommend that a citizens or a parent committee be appointed to do the detailed report, review and report back to the school board. I showed the gingerbread man last time. Here it is again. And I don't think any of the life experiences of a student will be affected if they don't know the 4 ways of looking at sexuality: gender identity, gender expression, biological sex, or sexual orientation. This will not improve the academic proficiency, which is the primary objective of public or government schools. The Family Life Committee is required by NRS, but it does not mean that we should abandon common sense. Let teachers do what
Thank
they
you,
are
Betsy. I'm sorry your
taught to
time's
do.
up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Come forward, please, Richard, and state your name for the record. Thank you, Betsy.
Good evening. My name is Richard Nagel. My question is about the terms of the board, and I see that people can get reappointed and such, but I think that it needs to come up like a general election where we can have candidates run against these board members so that we can get some turnover in the board, and maybe other interested citizens could share in that responsibility. Because now it looks like a locked committee, okay, that's appointed for life. So they get elected by you guys, but again, it's a life appointment almost. And I think that we need to have some kind of system where people can come in from the outside and say, hey, I want to volunteer for this and I want to be a member of this, and then have them run up against the person that's there, just like everybody does in a normal election. And I would appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Any other public comment in person?
Hi, good evening. My name's Karen Stevens. And I have to say, sitting through this, frankly, I'm very relieved that many of my concerns regarding this document have been covered. I was deeply concerned that the Family Life Committee was attempting to violate the statute by adding 4 students to the committee. And I was wondering if they were actually going to have opt-in forms for their parents to sign. But since that doesn't seem to be an issue now, I'm relieved about that. So I'm wondering how many of the board members have actually attended a Family Life Advisory Committee meeting? 1? Great. I've probably attended more than all of you put together. And I can tell you, I've never seen more than 4 members of the public attending. So really don't know why 3 minutes public comment would be the problem. One of the biggest problems I've noticed is meetings never start on time. So if we're worried about time, maybe we can start them on a timely manner and have all the appropriate papers ready for the public to pick up and have the video started on time. And it's just doesn't seem very effective way to run a meeting. So I'd like to see maybe some of those things ironed out. And hopefully some of this school board members could actually attend the meeting besides Stacy, and I really appreciate that she's done that because some of the things that they're approving or assigning age groups to, it's just thrown out into the air. Oh, we think this content is appropriate for a 7th grader. Well, how did they come to that conclusion? I don't know. It's just like it's just thrown out there and okay, yeah, I second that. So I think we need to really look at what's being approved for what age groups, because some of that stuff, my grandson, if he would, I mean, he still giggles when somebody farts. And I wouldn't want him seeing that kind of stuff. I mean, he would crawl under a chair. It's that ridiculous for some of the age groups that this stuff is being approved for. So anyway, thank you for your time. Appreciate all your effort on this issue.
And thank you. Once again, any other public comment? Please come forward, state your name for the record.
President Varner, before they start, so I don't interrupt your time, Karen brought up a point that I meant to mention. You had some language in there about when the meetings start. And it seemed like something that might be good to add is you're waiting for a quorum, and I know how that goes, but do you just wait indefinitely? Or maybe you should say, if we don't have a quorum in a certain amount of time, we have to, table the meeting.
Thank you, Joe. Please come forward and state your name for the record.
Okay, it's Mary Ann Humphrey. It hasn't changed. Anyway, I know this has probably been mentioned, but I just thought I would mention it again. The part about allowing the public to speak, I really feel that the public should have a 3-minute input, because when you go to the Board of Supervisors meeting and you come here, the 3 minutes is okay, but 2 minutes is you're really rushing people's thoughts. And I think by having 3 minutes, you're giving people adequate time to try to get their thoughts across to everyone. And so I just feel very strongly that by giving the 3 minutes would be fair for everybody to express their opinions and thoughts on how this is. And I have another question. Are all these agendas, the 18 different, I guess, lessons or whatever you want to call them, are they getting parent approval? Do the parents know what they're being taught before the kids are seeing any of this stuff? And do they have an opt-out option? Because to me, that's really important. A lot of parents teach their own kids about sexual education. We did. But, I just was wondering, do they have an opt-out? Do the parents know what the kids are being exposed to, the pictures they're being shown? There's a lot of graphic stuff out there, movies and pictures. And I just think this really has to be thought out and has to be age appropriate. Not saying, oh, it's for a 10-year-old when it really should be maybe for a 13-year-old. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment, in-person public comment? Seeing none, we'll close in-person public comment and go to any online public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Varner. This comment is from John Vattel. He expresses concern over the Family Life Advisory Board materials. Of particular concern is the issue of bringing the subject of transgender into the classroom, especially at the middle school level. I strongly suspect that the subject is being introduced at the elementary level as well. We should be teaching facts, not political opinions. The fact is there are two genders, male and female, period. Folks with mental problems should be treated, not emulated, and certainly should not be defining norms. Carson City parents do not want teachers to encourage their students to engage in self-mutilation, even if assisted by a physician. Your job in our Carson City public school system is to teach our kids how to read, write, do basic math, and especially learn about the history of the world and the circumstances surrounding the creation of the United States of America. My interaction with recent Carson High graduates, including my son's contemporaries who are Carson High graduates, indicate that Carson City is doing a poor job. This comment is from Charlotte Stewart. She would like to go on the record about Article 6 in the Family Life Advisory Committee document on page 19. The approved content toolbox needs to be defined. How will past materials be approved by the board? Where is this mentioned? It's my understanding that the 18 courses will be added to the agenda so the materials can be approved by the school board. I think the board needs to do adequate time to review all videos, PowerPoints, and handouts from the 18 resources. A synopsis of the course or simply telling the teacher requesting the resource it's not approved is simply not enough. There's no guarantee that the material won't be used anyway. There have been no audits of the opt-in forms, which the statute requires. How will we know this has been done correctly? I think some serious thought needs to be put into what is age appropriate, especially because not all children mature at the same time. Also, having children in 4th and 5th grade going to school with kindergarten kids after learning about sex is going to expose the younger children to things they shouldn't even know about. I see it is a way to systematically steal your childhood. I'm not against girls learning about menstruation because a few of them are. Really, though, why do you find teaching children this young about sex and transgender acceptable? This comment is from Robert Harris. Section 1.3 of the Family Life Committee's consultative role is dangerous because the committee will be reviewing potential material that is graphic. With minors being considered for this consultative committee, they are essentially being exposed to non-approved content that can harm them mentally and plant ideas for sexual behavior that are considered taboo by parents. If the parents are not involved, then neither should the children. The school board needs to play an oversight role by attending these meetings. This is important so the board actually knows what they are approving. I didn't know what my daughter was learning, and it took 2 years to understand what she was exposed to. She was not emotionally ready to hear what she was being told. It's easy for the school district to have an opt-in or an opt-out, but when these forms are ignored and your child is subjected to the explicit content anyway, what's the recourse for the family? The damage is done, and the child loses any innocence they had. When the teacher decides they will subject your child to the explicit content because they don't want to send your child to the library for a week, what is my recourse? Again, the damage is already done. If a child comes to a teacher with a question, that is one thing, but when the district is planning ideas for sexuality, that is another thing. Hosting a queer STEM class for 11-year-old girls is indoctrination. I sent information to some school board members about this indoctrination. The community needs academic success, so we have graduates who can make a strong labor force. This district likes to hire from within, but the lack of academic achievement requires local business to import talent from all areas. Teach the children how to read, write, and do mathematics. Most of all, teach them science and how to follow the science. Chromosomes from simple X are girls and XY are boys. Confusing children has not decreased self-harm rates. Follow the science and the data. Homo sapiens are unique, but we are all have a chromosome makeup that grounds us. This comment is from Jason Tingle, the parent of children in the Carson City School District. He was hoping to have been here, but he's working to try to get someone elected to make real changes and stop the insanity that we are currently seeing. With that said, we have been through COVID and mask, which in turns out I was right and all the info I gave the board was accurate, yet most didn't want to hear it. Now we're dealing with true psychological issues of our children, and there's are only six people responsible for that. We are setting record lows in our county for testing, not state, and we are administrators patting themselves on the back and trustees making excuses and blaming parents for it. We all saw how well that was received. Now we have extremely controversial social constructs making the way into our schools and into the mind of our children. Adults have a hard time understanding transgender ideology, including the people in this room. Yet a single committee who considers themselves the authority on everything transgender decides that it needs to be taught in our public schools in a class. Why? First of all, I've already shown that over half of our students aren't even proficient in regular studies like English and ELA, not to mention this person isn't even an accredited teacher, yet somehow they are already or are going to be teaching in this district. Again, why? We should be focusing on how to help the rest of our district and teachers to achieve at least proficient level of testing on the very basic. Last, if this wasn't a social move by any means, then explain this to me. How can the TAG, Transgender Ally Group, be teaching about what it means to be trans and about body parts and how sexual organs and reproductive parts mean nothing in the trans world? This is all introduced in 6th grade. Yet they don't teach the basic man and woman reproductive anatomy until 9th grade. How confusing is that? Why is this being introduced 3 years before basic sexual anatomy? Have any of you on this board even seen the content of this from the TAG group? I have. Pull up the link. It does cover what trans people think their sexual parts are for or not for, and how no one has an assigned gender. This is 100% counterproductive to school, and it's obvious. How can you infiltrate a 6th grade mind with the most controversial subject out right now, and to do this 3 years before basic reproduction is even taught? What do they or can they compare it to? Just exactly what are you trying to do in our children? Are you trying to tie their brains in knots and indoctrinate them? If not, then why teach it 3 years before basic man and woman reproductive systems are taught? What is the goal of this? How is this school and math and science and English? I would like to present the board with a whole slew of opinions.
Thank you.
Mr. Varner, I believe that's all I have.
Right, we'll go ahead and close public comment via online now. We did have a motion and a second. We'll go ahead and call for a vote on that motion. Do you need it repeated by any chance?
Might be a good idea to repeat it just for the public.
Motion to continue and to direct the committee to make changes and bring it back for a second reading. That's probably not specifically what I said, but.
Thank you.
So I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Sheila and Cheryl. We'll go ahead and move on to the next agenda item, which is item number 10, discussion and possible action on approval of an application to the Nevada Department of Education for the renewal of the Carson City School District Distant Education Program for the term of July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025. And presenting this, Ms. Fuson. Mrs.
Yes, thank you, President Varner, no worries. Thank you for having me this evening. Yes, I am bringing our district's application for our renewal application for our distance education program in our district. The Department of Education regulates the approval of all distance education courses and programs according to Nevada Revised Statute and Nevada Administrative Code 388. Districts are required to have updated distance education plans every 3 years, so ours is coming to its conclusion and we have to renew it. One thing I felt that's really important to note is that approved distance education program applications do not exempt school districts from adhering to NRS 388.090, requiring schools to provide a minimum of 180 days or equivalent for alternative calendars, and does not allow districts to hold digital days in lieu of traditional days of school. I think it's important to note that because with all of, when you have snow days, et cetera, sometimes there's questions, and there's been newspaper articles around, can a district hold a digital day if there's smoke or snow? And the answer to that question is no, not until you've actually utilized all of your contingency dates. So I wanted to make sure that was clear up front. So with our distance ed application, you have in front of you, the first page is quite literally just the cover page with my information and the district's information and the date that I brought this in front of the board. When you look at section 1, it talks about all the distance education courses that are offered as part of the distance education program. Also important to note here that you are not adopting distance education courses. That's already been done in our district. So this simply names what we have as adopted curriculum. So we have Pearson that we use, as well as Apex Learning. Apex Learning I brought to you last spring, for instance. Section 2 talks about the process that is used to enroll students in the program. Moving on to page 2, for instance, it talks about our McKinney-Vento students, the enrollment process, full-time student in online enrollment, and registration. So much of that, and moving on to page 3, like part-time, et cetera, is directed by the state. So it's how we are accountable to the state in terms of making sure that we have students enrolled in Infinite Campus and enrolled in a minimum number of classes, that we're tracking those students, et cetera. So that's really what that's about. And we do have a requirement to, for instance, like create educational plans for students. I think interesting to note, or if you look at page 3, our students are required when they are full-time online. I think it's a good thing for parents to know they are required to take state assessments, even though they're full-time online. Also, we do not, this is a change in this application, is we are not accepting students from adjacent counties into our full distance ed program. And the reason why is all of our adjacent counties have full-time online programs now. That's a little bit of a different thing that has occurred through COVID, because in the past we have, for instance, taken students from like Lyon County, for instance, or Story, because they didn't have full-time distance ed programs, but they do now. So there's literally no reason for us to take a zone variance for a full-time online student. Most of our students who come to our district for on zone variances come like maybe because their parents work in the district or work in Carson City, or maybe our high school has a program that their high school doesn't have. But when it comes to distance education or full-time remote learning, there's really nothing we have unique to our program that another adjacent county doesn't have. So I think that's one of the main changes in this application. Homeschool students are not permitted to do online distance education with us for obvious reasons. I mean, I should say it sounds like it'd be obvious, but if you're homeschooled, then you're homeschooled. If you want to be enrolled in full-time online with us, you actually enroll in our district. So that's why we don't take homeschooled students. On section 3, it talks about how we document pupils' attendance and participation in courses offered through distance education. So that really takes you through all the way through the end of page 4. That is very specific, again, directed by the Department of Education, because we do get attendance audits. And when we are audited for attendance processes, we have to actually show all of that documentation and how we're holding students accountable. So that describes how we intend to continue doing that. On page 5, section 4, talks about how the district or charter school will assess student mastery of course content. So in our district, of course, students are required, as I said, to take those state required assessments and other assessments that may be required by the district. It goes into proctoring guidelines, just that, you can't have friends proctor, you can't have like a coach proctor, et cetera. But that's just to make sure that students are being held accountable in the same way as students in CEDAR are being held accountable. On page 6, there is requirement, for instance, that a student pass a final exam, and that we do require remediation in order for a student to take the final exam again. You'll notice, I think I passed over it, but I did not remove end of course examinations, and that you might have been scratching your head on that because we are not currently giving EOCs, but they are still in NRS, so there's really no need to remove them while the Department of Education may implement them again. So I simply put that as applicable or as appropriate or when required, that we would proctor end of course exams to students in our distance ed program. On page 6, section 5, it talks about how we monitor progress of a student enrolled in the program. And again, the big part here is that it is required two-way communication. Our teachers do call and talk to students in person. We do make sure that they are making appropriate progress at the appropriate speed. So even though the student working in remote can kind of work on their coursework anytime throughout the day, it is still expected that they complete the same number of courses as an in-seat student during the school year. Right? They have to be on track for promotion to the next grade level and or graduation. So we have to make sure that they're staying basically on pace with their courses. And then if a student does not meet the requirements, we do put them on plans of assistance for support. And if absolutely necessary, unenroll them from distance education and require them to re-enroll back in in-person education. Distance education is not a place for students to go to get lost. I mean, that's not what we want to occur. We've seen that happen with, for instance, Argent Charter School that was in our district. You know, they were primarily online and they had really a difficult time with maintaining, proper scores for students and credit attainment. They had low graduation rates, et cetera. So we are really committed in our district to making sure that when our students are choosing a full-time online option, that they're being successful in that environment. And if they're not being successful, that we provide intervention support and remediation support, all up to bringing them back in seat if absolutely necessary. So that's documented. What you see beyond that is the list of approved classes. And attachment A is our courses that we offer through Pearson Online, and attachment B are the courses that we offer through Apex. So it is a list of currently the course work that we use. I will point out to you that you can see that there is on the 2 columns to the extreme right on these lists, an expiring date and a submitted date. So the Department of Education, NDE, now approves all distance ed courses. They go through an approval process. Vendors, in order to be approved at the state level, have to go through a process where each and every course, one by one, is being assessed for alignment to state standards. So, and they have to do that every 3 years. So you can see, for instance, right here that Pearson was approved in 2019. They are up for renewal this July. So we'll have to see if their courses continue to get approved at the state level. For Apex, theirs is not expiring until 2023. So they're a little bit longer, but I wanted to point out that that's what that expiring date means. That is actually a date that is set by the Department of Education as a requirement for renewal. I guess another thing to let you know is that this application was actually due May 1st, but it did not come out until April 1st. So I had to request an extension, and we were awarded an extension because I had to, once we got the application, get it on our board agendas. And obviously, as you know, we've had recognition ceremonies, et cetera. But so ours will be submitted slightly late, but we did get awarded an extension, permission for an extension. So at this point in time, I'm requesting that you approve our application to run a distance education program. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions? Go ahead, Stacy.
So basically, since this is our online or distant ed, this is Pioneer Academy up until 9th grade or through 12th for the
So
online?
that is an excellent question, Mrs. Wilkie. So there are multiple plans that we have to, as a district, write that are tied together. This is the first, really, of 3 different plans. This is our ability as a district to offer distance education. It is written relatively vague for a very specific reason, because we want our schools, no matter what school it is, to be able to use distance education, and we've used them in different ways. So for instance, although the vast majority of our students who are in distance education are through Pioneer Academy, and that's what we've funneled, you will have an odd situation where maybe a Carson High School student might take a distance ed or online class, maybe for a course that isn't offered in-seat. Or you actually see that more with in-seat Pioneer students, like maybe a calculus class that's not offered in-seat. But it happens sometimes. We've had that happen maybe with a language, like if we don't offer a specific language in-seat. So it's rare that we have full-time online distance education students in our district other than at Pioneer, but it does occur. So, and then also allows us the opportunity to work with, like, potentially, actually, where we see it happen more so are students who are on long-term suspension or expulsion. So instead of taking all of those students and withdrawing them from their zoned school and placing them all at Pioneer Academy, we will leave them attached to their zoned school, but put them on full-time online remote learning. So that's where you see that come up as well. So this is very general for a specific reason. For that reason, then our next plan that builds on this plan is our district's alternative education program plan. That's another application that goes to the state. And then that is what directs Pioneer Academy's program that makes them an alternative school. But also Carson High School has an alternative school within a school, and that's their options program that they run in that after-school block. So, but because we use distance education or access to distance education in those alternative programs, you have this one first, then that one, and then that one actually specifies what school and what the program looks like at that school. So literally, when I bring that update in front of the board, which will happen this summer, because once this is approved at the state level, I then have to update our alternative ed application, and you'll be seeing that one too. That one's where it literally specifies at Pioneer Academy, this is how alternative education looks. At Carson High School, this is how alternative education looks. At Eagle Valley and Carson Middle, because they're looking at some after-school programming for students with behavioral and attendance issues, this is how it might be used.
So that goes into my next question with the enrollment categories. That's why.
Correct.
That's not totally specific, because that doesn't really fall for
It's a very
the academy.
Broad, yes, it's a broad way of how we would use it or what type of student it might benefit in some way. So I know this one doesn't get into the details, so it becomes why does this seem so kind of really
because
open?
this one, it is pretty detailed, and it doesn't seem like it's a full-time school that the enrollment would fill in, because it sounds
So
like these
that
are
one
the
we just said,
exceptions.
if you want to tell me what page specific you're looking at, because I think it's mentioned in two places.
Page 3.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm referencing the right one.
Right.
So yes, so students, so that enrollment categories, participating in a program of pupils at risk of dropping out of high school, so that's usually your alternative plans like Carson High's options program, enrolled in a public school that doesn't offer certain classes, for students who have physical and mental conditions that otherwise require excuse from a compulsory attendance. So at home, we do use it on homebound, for instance. Demonstrating behavior that would prevent students from attending traditional alternative schools. So again, that's the students on long-term suspensions or expulsions. And then flexible scheduling, credit advancement and retrieval, so that flexible scheduling is really what we refer to as Pioneer Academy's model. Right. So that kind of, yes,
Thank you
it's
for the
like,
clarification.
yes.
Any other questions by the board? Any comments? Nothing? Thank you.
Certainly.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it's an action item, so I'll go ahead and call for a motion.
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the Carson City School District Distance Education Program renewal application for the term of July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025, and authorize the Associate Superintendent of Educational Services to submit the plan to the Nevada Department of Education per NRS 388.838.
Second, Wilkie.
Thank you. Any board discussion on the motion? Seeing none, any public comment on the motion? Please come forward and state your name for the record.
Betsy Strasburg. It would be really good if, especially with this extensive documentation on the topic, that if it is referred on the monitors, because it's really hard for us to see in our little phones. So that would be a suggestion for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment in person? Seeing none, any online public comment?
Yes, Mr. Varner, thank you. This comment is from Robert Harris. I think the proposed extension of online learning until June of 2025 is entirely too long. Every stakeholder knows that children do not do very well during the online classes of 2020 and 2021. The lowering of standards and poor testing results should give this board pause to do more online learning. The board should not allow this type of program because it is ineffective. Checking a box does not equal results. Part of the reason enrollment is down for the district is because the children are not learning academic skills. For example, one private school grew from 25 students its first year to 125 its second year. I see another school getting ready to open across the street from a public elementary school. The trend of pupil decline will continue because parents want the best for their children, and online classes are not what is best for any child. That's all I have, Mr. Varner.
Thank you. We'll close the online public comment then, and I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 11. Discussion and possible action to designate critical labor shortages in certified elementary teaching staff, certified secondary teaching staff, certified special education staff, deaf and hard of hearing interpreters, custodial staff, and English language paraprofessional positions, and to allow acceptance of application from retired teachers and educational support personnel to fill positions in certified elementary teaching staff, certified secondary teaching staff, certified special education staff, deaf and hard of hearing interpreters, custodial staff, and English language paraprofessionals as allowed under NRS 523, and this is for possible action and being presented by Mr. Andrew Fueling. Thank you.
Thank you, President Varner, trustees, for having me back. This evening, coming to you, traditionally our Associate Superintendent of Human Resources would bring consideration to you for designating positions as critical need within the district. Going through, considering we don't have one at the moment, and trying to work with HR, considering the vacancies we do have and the general categories of vacancies, we've put together these 6 applications this evening, and it may not be the last time that I come to you with this, so for next year. So just be prepared if you see this on the agenda again in the coming weeks or months. So using past applications, try to use generically some of the same language since it has been approved before, once it has gotten to PERS, and so hopefully it looks somewhat familiar, the style of language. I do apologize for the formatting on here. It's a fillable PDF, which sometimes I love and sometimes I don't, and in this case I didn't really like how it turned out, but that's what we have. So just briefly, what we have in place right now, so we already have designated as of last year, and I should say the designation for critical need, once it is approved by the board and once it is approved by Nevada PERS, it is good for 2 consecutive years. So last year we designated special education teachers, special education paraprofessionals, bus drivers, and math teachers. So that carries into this coming school year, so they are already included. The requests you have here, the 6, it may seem that there is some redundancy with the positions, given what is already under critical need. And I recognize that as well, but I think it just kind of, in a larger scope, recognizes the needs that we're seeing. There are plenty of vacancies on our website, and we still have not received letters of intent back at this point from our staff. So those aren't actually due, I believe, until tomorrow. So there's still likely going to be more vacancies that we will see. I don't know, of course, exactly which categories of employees that will fall into, and that's where I may need to come back to you and ask for another category to be considered being designated as critical need. And the goal, historically, we've always done this a little bit later, oftentimes not until summer, or even at the beginning of a school year. And the purpose is to have this in place before any teachers that, or staff, I should say, that are retiring leave for the school year, that they are aware that this is a possibility for them if they would be interested in coming back to the school district. So the positions were being requested: custodians, English learner, paraprofessionals, deaf and hard of hearing interpreters, certified special education staff, certified elementary teachers, and certified secondary teachers. So with the classified positions and in talking with PERS, it is important as to the salary schedule, if I understood the salary schedule that these positions are on. If they have their own unique salary schedule, you need to specifically itemize out the position itself. But our certified staff all end up being kind of on this, they're all on the same salary schedule. However, I still just made some distinction with special education, elementary teachers and secondary teachers. The special education staff is not specifically tied to teachers because we do have some vacancies for speech pathologists and psychologists in the district. So this just kind of opens it up by saying staff, that it's not just teachers, it's really any certified special education staff. Are there any questions about any of that? I'm sorry, it was a lot of talking very quickly. Okay. So one of the things I included to kind of further support what is going on, and I'll apologize because I is looking at some of the things happening in Carson City regarding just changing demographics and kind of economic conditions. And as I was sharing it, I got some questions about, well, that's great, but how does it compare compared to Washoe and other areas? And so what I actually did is, what I gave you is just that Carson City snapshot, but I have a couple slides here that show some of the comparisons, and I think there's a couple really important data points when you look at some of the other areas of why Carson may be struggling a little bit more than others in trying to find folks to fill these positions. So I think your screens in front of you hopefully will show this fairly well. And I apologize, it's a spreadsheet, but I will be sure to get this posted and out to you. So if you want to follow up and you have any questions, you can certainly ask me about that. Okay. So in the spreadsheet that was included in your packet, it's really this top part. This is just Carson City up here. And so you have for all of these, so then below is Washoe County, below that is Clark, and below that is Nevada. It's looking at the change in population from 2000 to 2010, 2020, and then whatever March 2022 estimate I could find. But the 2000, 2010, and 2020 numbers are all census data. It is, for some reason, 2010 is not the easiest year to find data on, and the Census Bureau or Bureau of Labor Statistics websites don't always have 2010 is not as easily accessible. 2000, I don't know if it was because it was, it was the new century and everyone was really excited, so they made data very accessible to everyone. In 2020, because it was such a mess, they said, we'll make sure we'll get this out here. We have nothing better to do. But 2010 clearly is a problem. So So looking at the population, the first thing that really stands out, and this ends up being really impactful, I think. So Carson City over the last 20, 22 years has grown population-wise by about 12.5%. And when you look at that compared to Washoe, and you look at that compared to Clark, that clearly is low. I mean, Carson City is definitely growing, but as compared to some of the two other major urban areas in the state, it's not anywhere near that. When you look, though, at any of the counties, it's interesting looking at the population under 18, that is on a percentage basis and absolute basis shrinking in Carson City. However, Washoe, you see that number is decreasing, but on an absolute basis, it's increased the population under 18 because their overall population growth is so large. Same story looking at Clark County. What's then of interest, if I can get this thing, there we go. Looking at and sorry, it may seem like I'm a little off topic with this, but part of this is related, I think, really looking with the population over the age of 65. So in Carson City, already back in the year 2000, the population of Carson City that was over the age of 65 was well, on a percentage basis, well higher than what we see in Washoe and Clark. And in 2020, that trend continues. So the population in Carson City is most certainly aging, but as it is, it seems to be across the state of Nevada and even in the Nevada overall. So that's kind of the first part of that. Next, and this is all from the Bureau of Labor Statistics as well. I think this is probably the most telling of all of these. So again, the Carson City numbers they exist on that sheet that you were provided. So this gets a little economic-y, so I apologize, but civilian labor force is the term used to, it's the number of people who are employed, so they have a job, plus the number of people who are unemployed, people actively looking for a job. And the idea is if you put these two groups together, this represents everybody who wants to work, and they call it your civilian labor force. So you can see from 2000 to 2010 to March of 2022, the civilian labor force in Carson City has actually shrunk. The number of people who work and want to work has actually gone down. When you look again at Washoe, you look at Clark, those numbers are increasing. And that again represents, I think, that massive population increase, right? They have these enormous increases over time in their total population, whereas Carson City's only increased about 12%. So then when you look at the labor force participation rate, so this is telling you of the total population in the area, what percent of it is this civilian labor force. So your civilian labor force, you can see over time, has shrunk. So only 42.4% of Carson City residents are either working or actively looking for work. When you go down and look at Washoe and Clark, you kind of see the same thing, this reduction over time. And I think that represents, to some extent, that aging of the population in Nevada that we're seeing, right? If you're over the age of 65 in general, we're not necessarily expecting that they're going to be working or necessarily be looking for work. So then when you come over here, the unemployment rate, and if you saw, I think this was in the Nevada appeal a couple weeks ago, that the unemployment rate had dropped to 3% in Carson City. And that percentage, and you can see looking at Washoe, Clark's a little bit higher, Nevada overall, it's kind of an average of all those. What's important about that 3% number in the world of economics, your normal, if you want to call that your normal unemployment rate that you'd like to see is like 5 to 6%. And it seems strange that you would say, well, you want to have some unemployment, but it has to do, when your unemployment level gets this low, it's what you call like a hot labor market. Basically, you have fewer and fewer people available to work, and so employers end up competing, trying to attain these people, right? And wages will start to go up. But also the people who remain unemployed for long periods of time in this kind of market, they really usually have a mismatch of skills with what is necessary. And I think that to a great extent is what we are going to be struggling with as we are looking to fill these positions in the district. So when you have here a 3% unemployment rate, there are 750 people in Carson City that are claiming unemployment, or receiving unemployment benefits right now. So that's a really low number in the context of how big our little city is. And even scary in some ways too is that Washoe, being the kind of the nearest neighbor with the largest, maybe availability of potential of other folks who are looking for jobs, 6,500 people in all of Washoe County are unemployed. And that's a rather large area. So too, it's not like there's just an easy answer maybe to attract from other areas.
And AJ, that's something that the Washoe County School Board brought up at their meeting today too, was not only are we now competing with other districts, we're competing with the actual jobs that are available and the pays that are available, and that they're struggling because they usually get people that live in Carson working in Washoe, and that's not necessarily true as it used to be. But they're having the same discussion tonight.
Yeah, I think the reality of a lot of this is starting to, all employers, but school districts in particular, because we're starting to see all these resignations, retirements coming in, and really seeing, it's kind of worrying thinking about next year with some of this.
And AJ, it's, as you've mentioned, it's going beyond schools. I can tell you in my day job, I'm almost trying to find people saying, tell me what it's going to take to bring you here. And very few people are still coming by. Just everybody's either where they want to be, or, I have friends that just bought a house here in Carson City, and 10 years ago I looked at that same house and it's more than tripled in price. So people in some aspects can't come to Carson City and afford to live here. So it's a challenge on a number of fronts. It's not just because, hey, maybe the schools aren't everything they need to be for people, or this or that. It's quite frankly a matter of economics as much as anything else.
And Trustee Cassioppo, you once again have been a perfect segue into my next slide. So thank you. One last thing with this one, I just wanted to say, so clearly in 2010, the numbers maybe seem a little scary, and that was kind of the depths of the impact of the recession for this area. So that's why you see some of those larger unemployment rates across the state. You'll actually see that again on this next slide. So one thing I will say with this slide, so it's looking at changes in housing values and household income. This data is not really easy to come by or necessarily make sure that it makes sense of it. But I would say I think the story will make sense, even if the numbers aren't perfect. I had to kind of pull from random sources on some of this, especially the household income piece. But I think it generally, at least the story will make sense. And it gets exactly to what Trustee Cassioppo was saying. So if, if you don't have the people in Carson City to fill some positions, you would be looking elsewhere. But this idea of people moving to becomes problematic because of the price of housing. So using 1995 as a base year, the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis actually puts out some really amazing data, economic data on things like this. So a lot of this is from there. But if you look at $469,000 as this median house value that we see now, you can see if in 1995, if the average house transaction value at that time was $139,000, it has, or between 95 and 2000, what this index tells you is basically between 95 and 2000, the prices went up 11.45%. And if you compare 1995 to 2010, they've gone up 50.11%. If you compare 1995 to 2022, they've gone up 235.09%. So that's a really significant increase. And again, 2010, this price was much higher. If you go back to 2007, 2008, 2009, this is what the crash had already happened. So this is kind of the representation of the after effects of that. But again, then you look at that compared to median household income. And I set up this index scale kind of in the same manner, but so basically between 95 and 2022, that median household income has increased by 53.8% as compared to 235%. For Washoe and Clark, again, kind of the same setup. Washoe clearly has, kind of the highest values around for prices. They've seen a larger increase. Again, some of the household income numbers, this number seems a little too high to me. But that was the only number I could find. So I don't know that that's exactly going to be accurate.
It probably includes incline, I would think.
Oh, that all makes sense now. Yeah, that does make sense. So anyway, just kind of trying to frame this idea too of if we're trying to attract folks to come and work here. So clearly, finding people in the city is difficult, just based on numbers. Finding people in Washoe, where they already have high housing prices, coming here could make a little more sense. However, they're dealing with their own issues. They don't have a whole lot of people that are unemployed and potentially looking for work, unless they have employers that are trying to poach from each other. That may work. But otherwise, people moving from other areas to Nevada, this becomes a real problem with the housing value. So I guess I just wanted to say that as a little backup to this larger request. And again, I'll probably be coming back to you again in the near future. I would expect maybe with a couple more positions. In general, for any of these positions, just that if we do have applicants, at this point, it's generally one. But for many of the ones that are posted right now, we don't have any applicants for them. So trying to get ahead of this as much as possible and give our folks who are retiring the opportunity to know before they leave that this would be available to them. That's all I got.
Thank you. Any questions by the board? Any comments? Thank you. I was just wondering, the recovery money, the ESSER money and stuff, could any of that be used to pay hiring bonuses or?
It certainly could. And we spoke, I think, at the tentative budget meeting and let you know about the intent to use some of it over the next 2.5 years for retention bonuses.
Yeah, retention too.
So the problem, the example I have as a bad example with the hiring bonuses is Washoe County School District, where they have offered $2,000 hiring bonuses to bus drivers since at the beginning of this school year, and they were down 50 drivers. And they've offered it all year, and they're now down 90. So I don't know to what amount we would have to go. I mean, and ultimately, I think it becomes you're poaching from other places probably to attract some people. I know Lyon County in some instances is offering $10,000 bonuses right now, and I know they are attracting people. So it's certainly something that we could look into more, but I think if we decide to go down that route, it would really have to be a significant amount of money to do that, and potentially we may be better off looking at the retention side of things and trying to do the most we can to keep people here. But it is a conversation that we continue to have about kind of the benefits and drawbacks of both and what will work out the best. So we can keep looking into that.
Well, I think we all know that part of the problem is just the pay scale. When you're starting at $48,000, $50,000 a year, it's hard to buy a what is it? It starts at 40. I thought it went to 48 or something.
It's up to like 43, I think now. It's been a little bit of increases over the last couple of years, but yeah.
So what's the figure? I'm sorry.
I think it's around 43 for a starting
43.
teacher.
And I was told a story the other day that a high school student working part-time at In-N-Out made $40,000. So that kind of tells you we're really underpaying our teachers. But I know that's, not for discussion now, but anyway, I appreciate all the extra work you put into this, and I think it helps a lot to show why we're having a hard time recruiting people. We all know cost of living is very high. It's going up every day. $5 a gallon gas now. So I think this is a good way to go just because we got to have teachers in the classroom. Any other board comments before we move on to motion?
No, I just concur. I think, I guess the answer would be yes. I concur. But, no, I think that's an issue. And whether we look at, hiring bonuses, retention bonus, I don't think there's a silver bullet. Bonuses are great, but they don't get you that far. And, the reality is we don't have the ability to offer ridiculously high bonuses as much as I'd like to. I do think, I know we look at it at work too, retention's kind of a key, is if you can keep people happy, if you can keep the ones you want here, your key staff happy and keep them here, that's the biggest bang for your buck. They already know the job. And, I think that's what we have to do. And then you go into how do you do that? What are the job demands? Those kinds of things. I mean, we have demands we have to maintain, but anything we can do to ease the burden while still be effective and become more effective is what we have to look at. And that's tough to do, but I think that's probably the biggest bang for our buck is retention and finding a way to keep the people we want here.
If I could just add one thing, and just as a reminder to it, with the example of Lyon County, the two districts that benefited by far the most from the change to the people-centered funding plan were Clark County and Lyon County. And not blaming Lyon County, I don't know exactly why that worked out the way it did, but they did really well as an impact. So they have the ability to do that much more, than we do. So.
And, thank you. I'll go ahead and call for a motion.
Sure, I'll read it.
Go ahead.
Thanks. I take a deep breath. I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees pursuant to NRS 286.523, in light of the efforts made by the district to fill the open positions in certified elementary teaching staff, certified secondary teaching staff, certified special education staff, deaf and hard of hearing interpreters, custodial staff, and English learner paraprofessionals, as outlined by Mr. Andrew Fueling today in the document submitted. We're making the findings required by statute, and we adopt the written findings made by Mr. Fueling in the Nevada PERS form presented to the Board of Trustees. And based on those written findings, we declare that the statutory provisions provided in NRS 286.523 have been met, that there is a critical shortage of labor for certified elementary teaching staff, certified secondary teaching staff, certified special education staff, deaf and hard of hearing interpreters, custodial staff, and English learner paraprofessionals for a period not exceeding 2 years.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it, and I just have a quick question for Mr. Russell, because we've talked about Andrew Fueling, because he presented it, but on the critical need designation form, it lists Mr. Stokes. Should we have it be Mr. Stokes in our motion, or is it fine to have it be Mr. Fueling?
I think it's fine to have it to be Mr. Stokes as presented right now. He's still the superintendent until he's not.
Any board discussion about the motion? Other than having Joel repeat it? No, I'm joking.
How bored are you all? It's going to go slower the second time.
Thank you. Any in-person public comment? Pepsi?
So I appreciate the Trustee Casiopo's comments. Having been a hiring manager, bonuses tend to lose their attractiveness over a period of time. But the fact is, we have high inflation now, so people are going to do what's best for their families. I think the sourcing is always going to be an issue, and you're trying to attract people with bonuses, and you are not going to change the salaries. So the other thing that I would like to see the board consider is what are the root causes of the people leaving and where are they leaving? Is it all retirements, or are they going to another district, and why? So I think learning the reasons of why they're leaving and where they're going may point you to some sort of a solution other than hiring bonuses. And that would be my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard?
I managed quite a few hospitals, and we had extremely high turnover. And what I found out was that environment really made a big difference. Okay, and I think that we really need to take a hard look at the environment of our schools. Okay, now we have a lot of unfunded mandates that we have to take care of. Is there redundancy of data input that can be simplified by someone in software programs that can link these two data inputs together? You know, again, we have to get together with the teachers and see how we can help their job be more amenable, because I paid people less than what they would make at the Sheraton Hotel, yet after a while, I had zero turnover. After my third year, I had zero turnover for the next 6 years that I was there. So again, if you create an environment where people want to come to work and where people feel valued, you know, the money is nice, but people really work for the fact that they have an input and an impact on what they're doing. And the teachers I've talked to feel robbed of that impact. So we need to look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other in-person comment? State your name for the record again.
Same, hasn't changed.
I know.
I can. I just have a question is why, and Betsy asked this, why are the teachers leaving? Besides retirement, I do understand that, you know, people do retire after the tenure in, and that's cool. That's great. But why are we having an influx of people leaving? Are they leaving the whole profession of teaching? Has the agendas that these teachers are being forced to teach because of maybe the unions and the state Board of Education is being forced upon them? You know, these are things that we need to look at. These are important people for our students. And without teachers, you know, they need to learn. And these are important things we need to look at. Are they being forced to teach agendas that they don't want to teach and don't like? Or were they forced to, you know, have to take the jab? Were they forced to just do different things that they don't like and don't feel comfortable? And I really think these are all things that the school district, the school board of Nevada, they all need to look at all of this, because there's a reason why teachers are leaving the profession, not just here, but other places too.
Thank you. Just so you know, we are starting to look at that. We've requested information for the future agendas on that.
And to be clear, we have looked at that in the past too. It's not like we're just starting to do this. And we know some of the answers. We don't know all of them because not every person who leaves the district tells you why.
All right, thank you. Karen, you want to come ahead?
Hi, Karen Stevens for the record again. I'm just wondering about asking the state to designate critical labor shortage for the school district, because my impression of that is it allows people that are retired to come back and work for the school district and still collect their pension. Well, if it was me, I'd retire and then come back and work for this school district so I could get my pension and get paid for this. So I'm not really seeing how this is going to be that much help. Unless there's just a slew of retired people that are saying, oh man, I'm just so bored gardening and going on vacation. I want to come back and work for the school district. It's just, I don't see this as really something that's going to be that helpful. Unless I'm missing something. So I just thought I'd bring that up.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other in-person comment? Seeing none, we'll close in-person public comment and move on to online public comment.
No, Mr. Varner, thank you.
Seeing none, we'll go ahead and call for a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Fueling.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 12, approval of the consent agenda. And I'll call for a motion.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second by Lupe. Any public comment? Reference this agenda item? Seeing none, any online public comment?
No, Mr. Varner, thank you.
Seeing none, I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Let me move on here. We'll move on to item number 14, request for future agenda topics. Any board member have anything they want on a future agenda?
Maybe just because this was brought up at Washoe's meeting too, is maybe seeing what our retention rates are the last 3 or 4 years and looking at that specifically, and then seeing if we do have reasons for why they are leaving. Sure, that can be rolled into another agenda item that we're looking at.
And an agenda item I want to put on is to start the process of how we proceed on developing or reevaluating the superintendent evaluation.
Mr. President, just so the record's clear, I think you need to call item 13.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, I missed that. Information items for discussion only, no action will be taken. I think everybody's had a chance to read the informational items. Is there any discussion or questions? Seeing none, thank you. At this time, we will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank everyone for coming and staying for as long as you have. I truly appreciate it.